Okay, live, there we go. Apparently I picked a really bad time to do this one, but I don't know, sometimes it can't be helped. All right, The Living Daylights, which, yes, believe it or not, it is my favorite James Bond film. Always has been for as long as I've been aware of the series, really, because it's one of the first ones I've seen, which maybe has something to do with it. I'm not sure, but it's not just something I always said to be different. Um, I guess I am a fan of the series. I remember 5 or 6 years ago, we did an episode on the Sausage Factory where we were having a meeting for the Sausage Factory. We were getting together and, we were planning some future episodes and some topics. And I was the one who suggested a Bond show. And I remember Pizzelle and people agreed. They were like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a big franchise. People know it. It's been around. Lots of movies in it, make a good topic. But then when we actually got to the show, I kind of did all the talking, and a lot of people admitted that they hadn't seen that many of them, or couldn't remember, or couldn't keep which ones straight. And I kind of was the only one that did. So I kind of was like, I guess I am a fan of the James Bond series. I didn't even really think of it. But anyway, so this movie is interesting, at least for a few reasons. This is 1987, so once again, we're starting with a new Bond for the fourth time. Everybody forgets George Lazenby in there in '69 with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a little different because it's a one-off. Although Timothy Dalton here, our Bond for this, only wound up doing two, which I think is a shame because I think he's really great. It's my favorite Bond, but he's not my favorite guy as Bond. As I've said before, I don't think any of the actors that have done it have been bad. I've enjoyed them all. I like some better than others, and my least popular opinion, I suppose, is that my least favorite Bond is in fact Connery. And I know that he definitely has like the most sort of hardcore fans and Bond purists. It's just like Connery is Bond, and none of the others come close. But I've never seen it that way. I like his Bond, but I don't know, maybe it has something to do with a certain age too, although not everybody. Because in my case, by the time I was aware of the movies, it was known that it was a series where the main character was recast a couple times. So there, people were used to getting different looks at Bond. So anyway, I really like Dalton. It's a shame that he didn't get to do a third movie. There was a third movie planned for 1991 that fell through due to all sorts of weird nonsense that I won't go into here because it's not about that, although we will talk about Dalton and his tenure as 007. So that actually led to, so the next movie after this was 89's License to Kill, which would turn out to be his last one. That wasn't the plan. The 91 thing fell through, and then so between 89 and 95, you have the longest gap between Bond movies ever to date. And a lot of people thought the franchise was dead at the time. And some of it had to do with just saying like, that now that the Cold War was over, you couldn't really do a Bond film because even the ones that didn't center on the Cold War as a plot, although a lot of them did, and this movie does, they said you don't have the right atmosphere for a spy thriller, which I think is pretty silly. And then they'd come out with GoldenEye, the first film starring Pierce Brosnan, my favorite Bond, and that's one of my favorite Bond movies. It's right up there behind this. Proves that Bond was an enduring character, and he can handle sort of any era, and it was a really big deal. So that movie might even arguably is like, if not the most important, it's one of the most important of the franchise. This one, I think a lot of people even forget exists. A lot of people aren't even that aware of Dalton and his time as Bond, which I think is a shame because unlike any other Bond actor, including Brosnan, I think he's the only one who never made a bad movie. Well, unless you count, once again, the one-off that is On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby. He made one movie. I think it's okay. And it would have been interesting to see, what kind of Bond he could have been going forward, but he basically, what happened was, a lot of people remember that wrong, or just maybe they assume wrong. They think, people were so used to Connery that they couldn't accept this sort of like nobody as Bond, and it was a big failure, and that's why in 1971 they actually got him back, even though he didn't want to come back. They threw a lot of money at him to get him back for Diamonds Are Forever before he finally said, okay, I'm done with the character. And they moved on to Roger Moore. It's not really that. Actually, George Lazenby he just wound up being really intimidated by the contract because after he'd done the one, I guess the idea was to sign him to like a multiple picture deal. And he didn't like that. He didn't like how it restricted him having that sort of commitment. I think years later, he said he regrets that he should have stuck with it because it would have been good for his career. But anyway, he was pretty young back then. And another note is around the time of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, when there was a big scramble on to see who they were going to cast as the new Bond after Connery's departure, was, I think, Broccoli himself was the one that suggested Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton was only 21 at the time, and he turned it down, saying, I'm flattered, but I think I'm too young for the role, which is interesting. I mean, he's exactly right. Bond is supposed to be a seasoned agent. Very quickly talk about the way I see Bond and where it should fall. The newest Bond is going to come out with Daniel Craig, and he will have the longest tenure as Bond. He's been Bond almost for 15 years, which is longer than well, obviously any of them, but the second longest is Roger Moore, who had a tenure of 7 movies in 12 years. And I think, yeah, so I mean, I always think of Bond, he's supposed to be a fairly seasoned agent, a guy that's been around for a while, and even as a 00, he's fairly seasoned, which they do differently with the Craig sort of reboot, the soft reboot. The idea, when it very starts, he's not a 00, but like he's just become a 00, which is fine again. So I always think, like, at the youngest, Bond is late 30s, and at the oldest, he's probably late 40s. It's like, it's sort of like a 10-year mark in there. I think an actor who's around 50 can play Bond because they can look, you can believe that they're younger, but you don't want to think of Bond being past 50, which was really hard to do as Roger Moore particularly started to age. And he was about 57 for the last Bond before this 1985's A View to a Kill, which I think is definitely one of the worst. And the one before that, Octopussy in 83, I think that's one of the worst too. So they were coming off 2 really bad ones. He was too old for the role, which he even said. He was frankly embarrassed that he was so much older than, the female lead he was casted romantically against, because he was embarrassed by the age difference there. And he said, never again, I don't want to look like a dirty old man. So anyway, enter Dalton, although again, sort of some confusion. At this time, what's his name? Pierce Brosnan was in the mix, and a lot of people talked about him. And of course, if you know the deal there, was that he had his own contracts and commitments, and the thing that made him most famous at the time, particularly to American audiences, was that show Remington Steele that he was the star of. And that contract, I guess, was very restrictive, and it kept his schedule very full, so he really couldn't do it. He did do a screen test for Bond in 86, a year before this movie came out. And after the Dalton stuff fell through and all those years of chaos passed, when they were finally going to go through with GoldenEye and revive the franchise, they cast him based on that original 86 audition. They didn't call him in to do another audition. And again, I think that worked out for the best, because I think Brosnan would have probably been just a tad too young in the late 80s. Also, if you remember what he looked like on that show, he was quite thin. So this gave him some chance to get a bit older and bulk up. I mean, he was never like ripped or anything, but put some muscle on his frame. So yeah, so Brosnan's my favorite Bond in that he's the closest to what I imagine the character. Like when I just think of him, he's kind of like the archetype. If you read the book, that's kind of a thing. But I think Dalton is also very close. So I like Dalton a lot. I think he pulls off sort of that dichotomy of being charming yet dangerous. Of course, the Roger Moore movies had very quickly lapsed in tone and gotten kind of silly. And what's funny, for a while they did bring it back to a more serious thing in 81's For Your Eyes Only, which is also top 5 for me, and I think easily his best Bond. But then they followed it up with 2 very not good movies that were kind of silly. So anyway, this brings it back. And again, speaking of the Cold War backdrop, this is the last movie to really use that. This is going to involve Soviet agents and all kinds of shenanigans as far as that goes, because perhaps just in an effort to get away from that, even though it was still available in 89, License to Kill is completely different. It's about like arms dealers in like Central America or Mexico and America and that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's good. It's a good movie. I really like it. And it's actually probably, before the Daniel Craig movies, I'd say easily sort of like the darkest and most sort of violent Bond. This is also the last Bond to have a PG rating. They had to do the PG-13 rating for there goes my brain again. No, for License to Kill, because License to Kill had so much violence. In fact, I think by today's standards, it might even get an R. You have to remember that, like, in the 80s, a lot of stuff that got PG would nowadays probably be PG-13. And I think there might even be a few rare movies that were PG-13 that nowadays would get an R. I kind of feel like License to Kill is right on the line of that. We might even do that at some point, and we can talk about them more. But anyway, I think they're both really solid movies. But this is the last one to use the Cold War backdrop, use the Soviet agents and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into the movie. I've tried to not just give some information with the intro here, but also maybe give people some time to find it. So I'm not watching my Blu-ray, but I do own just a normal standalone Blu-ray edition of it here, kind of unimpressive. I have a Bond collection on DVD that actually includes this too. It's called like the Ultimate Collection. It's from like, I guess, the mid-2000s, but it would be nice to someday get like a nice big Blu-ray set. But, you know, as they keep adding movies, that keeps getting changed. And, you know, there's smaller sets. Like, for instance, they have the sets in also arranged in such a way so you can get, like, all the Bonds, you know, starring Craig, all the Bonds starring that. But it wouldn't be much of a set in the case of somebody like Dalton. That's 2 movies. But anyway, so hopefully this gives you some time. So as I said, I'm actually not watching the Blu-ray. It's on Crave for me. So in Canada, Crave, it used to be part of what was called TMN, the movie network. Anyway, Crave is like a thing that merged with a bunch of stuff. Anyway, Crave is, if you get HBO in Canada, it's through Crave. So you have HBO, Stars, and a few other things like Showcase, which in the US is Showtime, you know, a few other things put together. Various stuff that comes out on HBO Max does come out on Crave, but not all of it. So it's a little confusing. And as I've seen, like in talking to people that have it, like my friend Jay the Stingray, like a lot of stuff that's on his HBO is not on mine and vice versa. So it's different. So I have no idea if like you're in the US, if these movies are available through HBO or whatever, but that's where I found them. You know, they're not on Netflix. They're not on Disney Plus, obviously. And I don't believe they're on Prime unless they're on maybe one of the MGM channels or something like that, because this is an MGM production. In fact, that's where I've got it queued up. I'm 1 second in on the symbol. So without further ado, I've done a little bit of a preamble there. We'll get into movie 3, 2, 1, play. I'll probably have to put my volume down a little bit because it's a little weird doing this with headphones when I'm solo. So, oh shit, what just happened to my camera? Did something get bumped? My camera looks all screwy. Okay, hopefully I can fix this. That's not good. I'm all blurry. Come on, my nice camera. Okay, you can hear the music. There's the opening. And as people know, the iconic shit. I know I'm all confused by like how my camera's all messed up. Let's see if I can fix this. Switch cameras for a second. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. So here's the intro. It turns out this is like it's an MI6 training exercise set in Gibraltar. It's pretty cool. It's one of the better, I think, intros, because, you know, the Bond movies always have that intro that is sometimes part of the plot and sometimes isn't. This one is, but sometimes they're cold opens. Oh, what have I got to drink tonight? Here's a Yoo-Hoo, which I know if you're in the US isn't very special, but Yoo-Hoo is not sold in Canada. Like, you can't go to the, you know, grocery store or a corner store and get it. I had to get this from a specialty store and pay way more than, you know, you would ever want for a can. Funny, it feels weird to shake a can, but it says to shake it. So that's going to be my special drink for the night. So yeah, so you've got, at first it's cool too, because it's not clear that Bond is among them. You just see 3 agents, and it turns out they're all double O's. And they're doing this thing where they're trying to infiltrate the base in Gibraltar. And obviously the security forces know that. They've been prepped for it, so they've got like paintball guns. It starts with them skydiving in, and then they have to start climbing the cliff, as we see. But they do a good job here, because they don't start with Bomb. They start with the other 2, and then get to Bomb when you see that something's wrong. One of them is 004. I can't remember that well, but, you know, there are several other James Bond movies that mention or show other 00 agents, and they always just kill them off, which I think is kind of funny, because, I mean, I thought 00 were the best of the best. And yeah, and I get it, Bond's even better than them. He's the best ever. But still, like, I'm surprised it took as long as it did to get, okay, this guy gets caught right away. As soon as he lands, he's paintballed. You're out. Honor system. But, I got derailed there by the movie, of course. What the fuck was I saying? Oh yeah, I'm surprised it took as long as it did with GoldenEye to get a plot where, like, the bad guy turns out to be a former 00 agent. And that's 006, Alec Trevelyan, of course, played by Sean Bean. Great movie. So now we have the other guy climbing up, and this is where we realize that there's another player in the game, and he's not really playing. It's another guy dressed in black. He's going to cut the rope. Yeah, he gets shot. Okay, I'm going to stop narrating. We're watching the movie, okay? You know what's going on. But anyway, boom. So obviously something's gone really awry with this training mission, because there's an added element here. Oh, and he's even going to send down a little message to them first. But yeah, more people need to know this movie. This is a cool, badass movie. All right, so there goes who actually turns out there. And finally, we get the camera on Bond. Our first look at the new Bond in 1987. Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton's had a great career too. A lot of good stuff. He's in the Edgar Wright comedy Hot Fuzz as the main bad guy. I love him in that. But yeah, as you see, it's really a shame they couldn't get that 91 movie. I think that would have been good instead of having that gap. There's the Bond music. So Bond ascertains the situation and realizes, oh yeah, those monkeys. I think they're macaques. They are. What's the word I'm looking for? They are native to Gibraltar. Well, they're native now. They might have been in a case of an introduced species. I forget. But anyway, if you go to Gibraltar, there are those monkeys all over the island, which is kind of cool because Gibraltar is technically, it's Europe. So you've got monkeys living in a European area. Hey, you're dead. I got you. Hold on, you're dead. That's good. I wonder if that's still too much volume. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, can YouTube, give me a strike or cut the thing just because you can hear the movie? I don't know how this fucking works. You shouldn't, right? I don't know. It's only a can. I'm going to drink this really fast. Yeah, there's a milk bar down near the water. They make fancy milkshakes and stuff, but they have a few sort of specialty drinks, that are imported and stuff, and that's one of them. I wish Yoo-hoo was just readily available and not so expensive. Pardon me. Move this over a bit too. I watched a bit of my last one on The Secret of Nim, and I was unhappy. I don't like how I look from the side. So I try to keep it on there. People talk about your good side. This looks okay. But when I'm looking at the movie, I'm the only person who noticed that because I'm vain. When people are watching this, they don't really care how my profile looks. Hopefully they care about the information I'm giving about the movie. So what's unfortunate is I can't just do a normal timestamp on this movie without stopping for a second and then just jumping. But we're just about 6 minutes in, people. If anybody's trying to catch up. And I'll try to give those as we go. So, nice action bit here. Trying to stop a guy going down the mountain in the truck. All right, so I talked over that message that the bad guy here sent down to 004. He sent it down the rope before he cut it. But they'll talk about it later anyway. Some tourists who maybe come to see the monkeys. And this is back before these things got too long. I think in the Craig era, these got too long. But this, this is nice. It's only a few minutes. Guy's going to drop to his death here. But he's got another parachute. So that guy explodes, and Bond is going to make a cool landing with his parachute. And it's funny. For a movie that's not well known within the James Bond series, I feel like this whole opening sequence has been parodied a lot for this part. His chute's kind of on fire. He's dropping quick, but he's going to make a landing in a boat. And it just happens to be on the yacht of some rich, beautiful woman. So, it's that's the James Bond look there. She's talking about how there aren't any interesting men here. And here he comes. It's interesting how he does the Bond James Bond thing. It's very different. She's like, who? Let's see how he says it. Who are you? Yeah. See, he's distracted. He's trying to get the phone just to talk to MI6 there. And she's like, who are you? He's like, Bond, James Bond. Leave me alone. Making a call here. So it's a little bit different. And we go into, of course, the main theme, the living daylights. And, of course, the Bond movies, I think, are well known for these opening sequences with their main songs. And most of them are bad. To the point where, you almost kind of expect them to be bad and want them to be bad. So this is 1987. So who we got doing this? Aha. Remember Aha, the group? Are they Finnish or something? The pop group with the song Take On Me, which was a very big hit and, of course, a really famous... So there's Joe Don Baker is in this movie. He turns out to be, spoilers, actually the main bad guy in this movie. This is one of those movies where they jump around a bit before you find out who the actual big bad is. But John Doe Baker, of course, would just a few years later come back. Instead of being a bad guy as an ally, he would come back as CIA agent Jack Wade in the movie Goldeneye, and he actually assists Bond. He's the one that calls him, hey, Jimbo, remember? So that's kind of interesting that he's in there. Who else is in this? It's not a lot of big names, but John Rhys Davis is in this. I think he's the Russian General Pushkin. So Pretty cool. So even though this is the first movie of the short-lived Timothy Dalton era, it's also kind of a last of a few other eras, or at least sort of traditions. Like I said, even though the Cold War didn't actually end until, around 1991 or whatever, with the folding of the Soviet Union. So in 89, the Cold War still on. This is the last one to use a Cold War plot. This is the last one for a long time to have a blonde Bond girl. You wouldn't have another one until Spectre, and Spectre's like, what, 2017 or something like that? So a long time. And that's Leia Seydoux. That's Madeline Swan in Spectre. And this was until Casino Royale came out in 2006, another reboot, which of course was based on the novel of the same name. This is the last Bond to be based on one of Ian Fleming's. Yeah, when I said Robert Broccoli, of course, he's one of the producers. I think I was talking about, no, I'm not right. It wasn't Fleming, it was Broccoli, and I was talking about wanting to cast Dalton way back at the end of the 60s. Anyway, interrupted myself again. So it's also the last one to actually be based on one of the, short stories or novels, Bond novels, as written by Ian Fleming. In this case, it's a short story. None of the Pierce Brosnans are based on Ian Fleming works. But anyway, so we come back with Casino Royale, which I think canonically is one of the first, not even be the first. It's one of the earliest Bond novels written in the 50s. Of course, this is directed by John Glenn, who directed every 80s Bond. So he directed the last 3 Roger Moores, and he directed the two Daltons. Okay, so now we're in Czechoslovakia at a concert hall. And we'll be introduced to our Bond girl. This has a pretty detailed plot, which we're used to now with the Daniel Craigs, but I think they used to be a little more simple. This one, you really got to pay attention to get what's going on, because there's a lot of angles being played here. So Bond's meeting his contact here because they're talking about how they've got intel that there's going to be an attempted assassination here, and he's there specifically to stop it. So it didn't take long to get Bond in a nice suit. Won't be the last time either. No, I don't think they have intel about an assassination. No, they don't. He's just here to help this guy defect. There's this guy that they're trying to smuggle, past the Iron Curtain, who wants to defect. Koskov, that's his name. He's this, Soviet intelligence officer or something, and he's attending this. And the whole thing is he's contacted them and says he wants out. He wants to defect, which is in real life, of course, was a very difficult thing to do then. So this is somewhat realistic. Anyway, Bond has noticed the cellist, the lovely blonde cellist, who will be our featured Bond girl in this movie. That's Mariam Dabo. I go back and forth with my favorite Bond girl, or who I think was the most attractive, but she's right up there. She's only 21 during this movie. So I remember only a few years ago, there was like a little documentary or something about the Bond series, and she was one of the main people in it, maybe even a narrator. And she would only have been like in her late 40s, and man, she looked fantastic. She's aged really well. So she might be around, well, she's 21 in 87. You do the math. I can't. It hurts my head. But anyway, beautiful, beautiful actress. All right, so Bond has ditched his suit for some black tactical gear, and they're giving him a... Okay, yeah. KG... Okay, yeah, I said intelligence officer. So yeah, he was a KG... Koskov was a KGB guy, and he's trying to get out. So they're giving Bond a very... Yeah, they must know someone's gonna... Yeah, okay, so they know there are KGB snipers around. Okay, so they know that there's snipers at least around because... Maybe they suspect he's going to be going. I don't know. So they give him his own sniper rifle to counter their sniper. And, of course, there's going to be a bit of a twist here, as we'll see. Right. So there it is. They know that there's snipers, at least one sniper are watching him. And they said that he specifically asked for Bond. So and there's reasons for this, as we'll see. So I guess that's just what it is to be a 00 agent. You have so many specialties. Bond does so many things, but apparently he's also like an accomplished, a talented sniper. And that's what we got to believe, right? Bond is good at getting information and sneaking stuff, but he's a good sniper and he's a good driver. That's the whole point of a 00 agent, right? They can do everything the way like Batman can or something. All right, so it's a pretty cool plan here for how to get Koskov out, as we'll see. I like it. Guy who hasn't turned on his night vision. So they're watching the street. Koskov's going to make a run for it. He's going to try to cover him in case any sniper tries to take him out. Back to the hall. He's going to leave, but the girl at the cello looks like she's anxious to get out of there too. Gee, I wonder why. So her character's name is Kara Milovy. And the girl with the cello is the sniper? That doesn't make sense. That seems weird, but there she is. And Bond hesitates. And at first you think, it's just because it's a pretty face, and Bond is, sexist in his way. Like, I can't fire on this woman. So he has a clear shot at her head, and instead shoots the gun. Doesn't want to harm her. And the other guy gets really mad. But he explains a little bit before that, as we'll say, that it wasn't just because, he couldn't shoot like a pretty girl, that he had reasoning behind it. As we'll get into. All right, so this is cool how they're going to smuggle him out. It's not just in the boot of a car here. Oh, that need-to-know stuff thrown back in your face. What you gonna do? Some of the best KGB shots are women. Also true. Ever since during World War II, Russia had a pretty good tradition of female snipers. In fact, one of the most, as far as like getting actual kill count, which is always fuzzy and stuff, it's not something that they are really supposed to keep track of, but like one of like the leading snipers during World War II was a Russian woman. I remember they used her for a lot of propaganda. Like at one point, again, because it was a more sexist era, they basically used her to shame men into like enlisting if they hadn't at a certain point, saying like, this woman's doing her part and she's killed all these Nazis. It's like, why haven't you signed up? Aren't you man enough? But, so they've got another agent here they're working with, this woman. All right, so they're going to use like the pipeline here, which is pretty cool. And this is where it gets quite unrealistic. But again, it's a Bond movie. Some fantastical things are going to happen. But it's pretty cool. They have this whole thing to like, since they can't drive across the border and there's no way of flying out, they're going to put him in the goddamn pipeline. Well, would that kill him? No, they've got like some sort of like rocket sled thing set up for him to go in. Something like this happens in Pierce Brosnan's third movie. Another one of the sort of forgotten, but I think underrated movies, The World Is Not Enough. There's some sort of thing with like going through like a pipeline or something. But that movie's much more ridiculous. Like, I like that movie a lot. I mean, Denise Richards really sucks, but it's still a pretty good movie. I feel like Brosnan's movies are really easy to sum up. GoldenEye is fantastic. World, what is it? Tomorrow Never Dies is average. Then The World Is Not Enough is underrated, and Die Another Day is like possibly the worst in the entire franchise. God, I hate Die Another Day. It's so bad. It's too bad that like Brosnan had to go out on such a low note. Because that movie's fucking terrible. And I mean, he's not bad. He's as good as ever. But just a terrible script to work. All right, now we got some more spy seduction. It's not as sexy as usual, but it's effective. This is just some old switchboard operator. He doesn't have much going on in his life. To have this woman come on to him, that's exciting. While the switchboard lights up, she's distracted by her ample bosom. Then as soon as it's over, she just pushes him away. What does she say? What kind of girl do you think I am? Well, they should have had a shot back to like his confused face, but they didn't. They just end on that. That feels like a missed opportunity. They should have shot him in like, I don't know, just making some "what's up" face. Because I mean, she did literally grab him and shove his face into her tits. So there he goes, zipping through the pipeline. So he's landed in Austria. There's Q. Nice. You know, like a lot of the Bond movies shot at Pinewood Studios. They got the 007 stage where they do a lot of sound stages. But, you know, there's a lot of shooting on location, too. I mean, that really was Gibraltar at the start that we saw. There's a few other things. I'm getting ahead of myself, but this movie also has one of my very favorite, if not my favorite, Bond-like car. It's also the first Aston Martin they used in a while. They actually didn't use an Aston Martin through any of the 70s. They changed it. And in the other 80s, they had different cars, too. So this is the first Aston Martin since, like, I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service. It's a really sharp car. Not out there yet. I mean, it's 1987, and Q already looks so old. Give Desmond Lewis credit, man. I mean, he went all the way to 1999 from the very beginning. From 1962 to 1999. In every movie, except for reasons that have never been explained to me, Roger Moore's first movie, Live and Let Die, Q isn't in it. And I have no clue why. It's never really been explained. There must be some reason for it. I think Live and Let Die is really good too. I like comparing the first movies by each actor. So the very first movie ever is Dr. No, so that's Connery. Then the first Moore is Live and Let Die. This one is Timothy Dalton's first movie. As I said, Lazenby is a little different because it's a one-off. Goldeneye is Brosnan's, and for Craig, you got Casino Royale. I think they're all really strong movies. I mean, if you're going to name like the best Bond movies, a lot of them are the actor's first time playing the character, which is interesting. I always start on a really strong note. You know, I like Roger Moore a lot. It's just he was in the game too long. And it's just really too bad. You know, regardless of who was Bond in 1971, I think Diamonds Are Forever is a shitty movie. It wouldn't matter who it was. That's the one Connery came back for. And I'm not blaming like he didn't want to be there. He just wants out. So also this movie is the first of a short, just like Dalton, there's a short-lived 80s Moneypenny who's only in the two movies, and then she's recast for the Pierce Brosnan era by Samantha Bond with her ironic name. So who is this as Moneypenny? I'm sure I don't know her, but she's cool. She seems to fit the era nicely. She seems very much like the 80s secretary. I don't know. I mean, she's more than a secretary, obviously, because she works for MI6. I'd have to assume even the secretaries are have sort of different qualifications. So that's Caroline Bliss, who I know I've seen and stuff. So yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, she's 25 here, so she's the first new Moneypenny. So while, you know, Bonds have changed a couple times, even before we got to this movie, you know, Lois Maxwell was Moneypenny from the Connery era right through the Moore era, and you know she was super old by then too. So yeah, she doesn't get it. a chance to do much. I mean, Moneypenny's never do get to do much, but I mean, she makes a good impression. She fits in. It's too bad they couldn't have made at least one more movie with that sort of cast in tow. I mean, it's the same cue as always, but yeah, it was definitely past time for Moneypenny. 25. She actually looks a bit older than 25. Maybe it's the glasses. And they're doing their usual flirtatious thing. She's asking him to come over and listen to Barry Manilow. That doesn't date it, really. I mean, people listen to Barry Manilow in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. He's timeless. All right, so here's another sort of recurring old tradition of the Bond movies that started with the second one, which I think is maybe the best beside my favorite after this one. My favorite movie after this one is the second Bond movie, From Russia with Love. And From Russia with Love has, you know, that big blonde Spectre agent or Smersh agent, I guess it is. Yeah, I guess it's Smersh that Bond has to fight. This movie gives us one of those guys too. Here he is doing the attack on the. I'm not really sure what this place is supposed to be. Like, it's some big, like, huge country property, but MI6 owns it and controls it. Very British. It's a safe house, but I mean, it's a hell of a safe house. It's obviously some sort of like important property owned by MI6. Anyway, Smirt Spionum, which I think they're going to talk about, which is the Russian message which was sent to, and that means death to spies, which I guess they means like the KGB has figured out who the spies on the other side are. They're going to take them out, I guess is the message being sent. Although, as usual, when they do these things, it's never, unilaterally the Russian forces, the KGB. There's always some rogue faction or agent working within them, There's always that. So, yeah. Nice big country manor here. They're going to have the meeting. And Koskov is just so impressed by James Bond's taste. I mean, we know James Bond knows the best of everything. So anyway, that blonde guy I mentioned, he's already infiltrated the place. He posed as the milkman. There's M. So we're going to do their debriefing here, and Koskov is not going to entirely tell the truth. I love that milk truck. Very, very European 80s. Flu. I mean, even though, he's the milk guy, they still pat him down, but that doesn't matter because his weapons aren't on his person. They're in the truck, which is pretty stupid. I mean, what's the point of patting this guy down if you're not going to actually search the truck he's driving? You could, he doesn't actually have guns in the truck or anything. As you'll see, it's another one of those sort of more fanciful things of the Bond universe here that's going to get used. All right, so they're talking about Pushkin. Smuggled some stuff in his shoe. How clever. Yeah, now they're discussing the death to spies thing. They've got a list of targets in British and American intelligence. And this could lead to nuclear war, which is kind of the common refrain through like all of these Cold War things. If tensions rise enough, it could be World War III. The nukes could start flying. And I mean, that's true. I mean, that's what people live with day in, day out, I guess. That if things got that bad, it could get to that point. So this is the last movie to talk about that. Right. So they mentioned there's a North African trade convention that might have like a weapons fair or something. I don't know. As it turns out, the guy that John Doe Baker plays in this, who is behind everything, he's some sort of like mercenary weapons dealer. It's the same sort of thing. It's like, I don't care about Russia or the West or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to make money with my weapons. So that parrot there, the macaw, that parrot is the same one that was in For Your Eyes Only. Just for the hell of it, I guess. John Glenn decided to bring him back. So that parrot we see getting fed is the same parrot. It's not the same kind of parrot. It's the same individual parrot. So now the milkman is going to turn deadly. See, he doesn't need weapons. He's got his headphones to strangle people with. But he has some more creative weaponry too, as we'll see. Not a very good fight scene here. Kind of lackluster, but it's not bad. I mean, the Bond films, I feel like they're really sort of hot and cold with their fight choreography. Some have really good, and some are just kind of okay. This movie, even though it's my favorite Bond, and you think, I care so much about fight choreography, I would say the fight choreography in this movie is average. It's not bad. I don't think anything about it stands out particularly. There's definitely some ones that are better. I mean, this fight is a little better than I'm giving it credit for, this kitchen fight. I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than watching, like, Steven Seagal and his nonsense in the kitchen, but pretty much anything is. This guy puts up a good fight. I mean, he's not just like a butler. He is an MI6 agent. That kick's a little klutzy, but I guess it could work, and finished off with a frying pan. Yeah, he has this whole thing about a gas leak. That's his whole escape plan here. He knew he'd get seen. He knew he'd get caught eventually, so he does this whole thing about there being a gas leak so that they'll bring emergency medical people in, like an ambulance, because that's his whole idea for smuggling out. So he picks up his milk again. You're like, why is he doing that? The ruse is over. Explosive milk bottles, of course. I mean, geez, couldn't you have guessed that? Yeah, so that's just funny. Yeah, so but of course, the other effect of the exploding thing is they leave a lot of smoke, so the people actually believe the whole bit he reported through the guy's radio about the gas leak. Boom. Explosive milk bottles. What will they come up with next? Might as well finish off my Yoo-hoo. It's a 2-hour movie. How am I going to get through it? I'm always drinking stuff. I might have to get up and get another drink later. I don't have anything good like that, though. That was my treat for the day. All right, so he's here just to bring Kolskov back. I mean, Bond is on the scene, but he's not back. Where is he at this moment? Yeah, so actually the ambulance is like a medical chopper. And here's the other thing that's great about being dressed like a milkman. It only takes a few changes to his appearance to make him look like some sort of paramedic. He just puts on a stethoscope and boom. So very clever and slick, I suppose. Although I figure he would have had to commandeer the thing as soon as he got in there, but it's not like they're prepared for armed people. Smacked Kokov over the head here, so it's like he's injured. Yeah, so it's a pretty well executed plan. I mean, the guys in white know how many guys there are, but I don't know, they're not thinking. So, oh, another guy in white. I guess you were here with us, but I mean, obviously immediately after this, he can just commandeer the helicopter, which is obviously what he has to do because he's kidnapping Kolskov. Meanwhile, the one guy that knows, they're way too late. With a laughing stock of the intelligence community. I like that. It's not like that it's such a disaster for, all these safety reasons or whatever happened to Kolskov. It's like, the rest of the intelligence agency is going to laugh at us. We look dumb. We look amateurish. I don't think that's too far off from how a lot of these things like MI6 or KGB or CIA and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of people at the top thought that way. It's like, I don't know, as a lot of this stuff gets unclassified and regular civilians get to read it, it's kind of crazy when you read about some of that stuff like that they did over the decades and how dumb some of it actually was. But I don't know why the U.S. isn't entirely turned against the CIA. They're basically just like a government-funded terrorist program. I mean, I'd really feel that way. So come at me if you want to tell me about all the great work the CIA has done in the world and how they actually helped people and promoted democracy. Fuck off. They were there to take care of America's interests in other countries, and they interfered the shit out of things and did all sorts of illegal crap. But anyway, I'm not saying they're the only country that had stuff like that, but still, they're right up there. All right, so he wants to talk about the sniper, Bond, and they're just like, why didn't you kill her? Yeah. But Bond, as he explains, I could tell by the way she handled the rifle that she wasn't any sort of so he mentions another 008. He says, I'll put 008 on it. I'll recall him from Hong Kong. So they really try to keep track of which 00s they haven't killed off. I mean, technically, is there only 001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Because if there is, at least half of them have been killed. I know 4 is dead. 6 winds up killed in in GoldenEye. A couple of them, I think, get killed in what's the one I'm trying to think of? Might even be the Man with the Golden Gun. But anyway, I mean, continuity's it's kind of a different sort of thing, right? In the Bond movies, most of them don't have anything to do with the one before them, but some do. And then some also try to do a thing where once they give us a new actor, then they make that sort of an established continuity too. I mean, that's definitely how the Craig movies work. The Craig movies, are like a sort of a reboot of the series, and all the Craig movies follow each other. And that's done on purpose. So now we get some of the usual foreshadowing for stuff that'll be important. Q is showing him some gadgets that will come in handy late in the movie. And they've got some dumb humor coming up. This whole thing about you'll see, the ghetto blaster. Here's something that put it squarely in the 80s. Of course it blows up too. The other thing you got to give Bond credit for, like, he never practices or field tests any of this stuff. Q explains it to him once, while it looks like he barely pays attention and cracks jokes. And then, of course, he goes out and uses it perfectly. Because, I mean, that's just how good he is. I wonder if you could make something like that. He gave him, like, this cool key-looking thing, and he told him it opened 90% of the world's locks. Who wouldn't want something like that? There's some of the humor and disappearing into the couch. All right, so now we get our information here on our cellist, our beautiful cellist. All right, so they're going to track her, I think, because she actually has a very expensive and famous cello. I think that is eventually how they find her, I think. They find out that it's like her cello was bought at auction for like 150 grand or something. Oh, they mentioned the Aston Martin. I missed the ghetto blaster? Did I talk? I don't know. Maybe that's later. Practicing with a string quartet. I mean, the cello is a great instrument. I've never played a stringed instrument, but I mean, I definitely am a fan of the cello. Can think of all sorts of great pieces that feature it. A lot of like rock songs that use it too, of course. I really like. My favorite band is Moist, and one of their big hit songs back in the 90s was Tangerine, which has a great cello intro. Girl I dated a few years ago, Chinese girl, like, she just thought the cello was the best thing ever. She wanted to learn it. All right, so he's going to try to make contact with her or follow her a little bit. Because they really don't get what's going on here yet. It's like, why did she have the gun? She's not an agent. She really is a cellist, as it turns out. So what's going on here? Yeah, Cinema Fan, I wish they had planned to do a third movie in 1991. I can't remember the title, a really weird title, and for a whole bunch of reasons that fell apart, and then by the time a whole much time had passed, they couldn't do it, and then they had to move on. I really feel bad that movie never came out. Like, he was definitely a really good Bond, and I think it would have been really cool for him to get a third movie in there. Because, I mean, I love GoldenEye. I like Pierce Brosnan. That was great. It's just too bad that we had that long gap and that there wasn't a third movie for Dalton. Because I think, I think both his movies are really solid. This is my personal favorite, and I think License to Kill is also really good. So I think it's really... Yeah, it had a weird title. I think you're right. Weirdest title until Quantum of Solace, which I think is the worst Daniel Craig movie. Man, that's probably the biggest there's John Rhys Davis as Pushkin. Probably my biggest letdown, because I loved Casino Royale. I was so happy with it when I saw it, and then Quantum of Solace I was so excited about, and it was so crappy. Felt like such a letdown. It almost feels like an anti-James Bond movie, like no glamorous locations. It's like in places like Haiti and stuff. And I don't know. They really kind of want to tone things. I don't know. It felt more like they were trying to do like a Jason Bourne movie than a Bond movie. I mean, they righted the ship, and I think they got better with those. But I really felt let down by Quantum of Solace. I really don't like it. That too, right? Yeah, if he could have come in earlier to do A View to a Kill, because I mean, let's face it, Roger Moore was way too old. Roger Moore himself knew it. He was way too old for A View to a Kill. He was like 57 or something. And I don't. I mean, it would have been better, but in a way, I don't mind because I don't think A View to a Kill is very good anyway. Like, even if they had like in a more appropriate Bond like Dalton, I don't particularly like the plot. I don't like Christopher Walken. I'm not really a fan of that movie. So in a way, I guess, if it's going to be bad, have it all be bad because, yeah, you're right. Like Roger Moore, he was in there too long. I mean, to me, in a perfect world, Moore's last movie would have been my favorite by his, For Your Eyes Only. And then like either Dalton comes in like 83, 84 and they do a movie. I don't know. Because I feel like Octopussy is not very good and A View to a Kill is quite bad. So, I mean, things happen the way they happened. But Roger Moore just stuck around too long. But For Your Eyes Only is my favorite movie that he did. I think it's really good. It's top 5 for me. If I do like top 5, it's like, believe it or not, this movie. What is it? From Russia with Love, GoldenEye, For Your Eyes Only. And then I'm not sure what 5 is. That probably changes. But those are definitely my top 4. I love them. There's a little bit of following her still going on. So we've seen Pushkin. Oh, he's got the cello with the rose on the case. Right. So, of course, he's not going to tell her who he is or what he's doing yet. Has to get her to trust him, so he's going to tell her some lies. So she's playing a Czech or Czechoslovakian at the time character here, but she's an English actress. She does a pretty. Yeah, the clown thing did happen. As much as you want to like wipe it from your memory. I mean, I just feel like the whole thing's pretty lackluster and stupid, but. Yeah, I think Clown Thing sums it up pretty well. It's just a bizarre movie. I mean, not just the title. I mean, the title lets you know you're in for like kind of a wacky time, but that might be the Bond I've watched the least. I don't even know if I've seen that 2 times. I might have seen that once and then bits and pieces here and there. Like most Bonds I've seen multiple times, even ones I don't like. Like I've seen Die Another Day a few times, despite the fact that I think it's garbage. Another thing about the Bond movies is how they go back and forth between Bond just being a womanizer that uses women to every once in a while, like really romancing them. This movie, he's really romancing her, which I think is kind of sweet in a way, although of course she's gone by the next movie and we move on. But I mean, they seem to genuinely have like romantic feelings for each other. And again, you could say it's James Bond, he's just using the woman. I don't know, but I feel like there's some actual romance between the two of them in this. It's not like the typical getting caught up in the moment and it's like, oh, we're on an adventure and you're a secret agent and we could die at any time and we're both super good looking because they always are, so let's have sex. Like I feel like she really does like fall for him. I mean, of course he is older than her and she's more prone to that kind of thing, but I don't know, I do find it kind of charming the way that, and they have this whole sort of date thing at the circus that we'll get to. It I actually really like it. I mean, I'm sure that's part of being a 00 agent is that you can get women to fall for you. I think it's pretty believable in a guy like Dalton. Yeah, ranking them is tough, and I don't really know a good way of doing it because what I've said is I don't think there's been a bad Bond. I don't think any of them have been bad. I just like some better than others. And I think kind of my least favorite Bond is Connery, which I know is like blasphemy to like 90% of James Bond films. But that's not because I think he's bad. I like the others better. Again, Lazenby's tough because he's just a one-off. And that movie is so different. That's the other thing that's interesting about Her Majesty's Secret Service. They don't just for the first time introduce a new guy's Bond. They go in a really different direction with the movie. But, he gets married and at the end his wife is killed and it's really quite different. So I don't know. My favorite Bond is Brosnan. The way I base who my favorite Bond is, it's not by how good the movies are. It's just who I think is closest to the way I see the character. So for me, Brosnan is the closest to how I see the character. Like if I read the book or I imagine him. So I'd be like Brosnan. I guess I'd go Brosnan, Dalton, Moore, Craig, Lazenby, Connery, I guess is how I'd do it. Which, makes it sound like I think Connery's trash. And I don't. I don't think anybody's bad. I don't. And I feel also like Moore really nails it in some movies, and in other movies he's kind of phoning it in. So it's sort of uneven as far as that goes. And you get it too, because sometimes the scripts are just so dumb. Like, what's Moore supposed to do when he's in a movie like, Moonraker or something, right? Telephone. So yeah, just to reiterate, I don't think anybody who to date has been a bad Bond. And I'm really excited to get a new Bond. As somebody who has no problem with Craig in the role, like it's just been way too long. Like he's actually the longest tenured Bond now. He's been in it longer than Moore, although he hasn't made as many movies. Like, and I mean, part of it is because this last movie got pushed back so much because of the COVID situation, everything like that. I mean, I think the movie was supposed to come out almost like a year and a half ago originally, and then they had to change that. But I'll be relieved when it's done because I'm just kind of tired of the Craig era. There were some pretty good movies in there, but I just want to see somebody else in the role. And it's always fun to speculate. And it's funny, as I said when I started this one, I hadn't for many years thought of myself as a James Bond fan until on the Sausage Factory and talking to various friends, I realized I was the only one that really knew anything about it or cared that much. Like I could tell the movies apart. I knew what came out where and who was in what and stuff. And they didn't really. Like, James Bond movies were kind of forgettable to them. So I was like, okay, I guess I am a fan. Oh yeah, so we get to see some of the special. We got a cutting laser there. He's got a good line here. She asks what it is. It's salt corrosion. So even though this is a more serious Bond than they'd seen in the last little while to try to bring it back, doesn't mean there aren't some like jokes and one-liners in it. There are. And this all culminates with a scene that I think is one of the all-time classic Bond scenes, and yet I guess it's not. Because again, this movie is mostly forgotten. People don't talk about it or remember it. And I think that's crazy. Because there's going to be a whole thing here for their escape, trying to get across the border, that I think is great. I mean, it's a little bit crazy because that's kind of how Bond movies work, but I think it's really good. And we'll get to it. And I'm just so surprised that it's not that well known. I think it's one of the things that makes this movie. Oh yeah, heavily armed Bond car. As I said, this is my favorite of the Bond cars. This makes me sad that, like most Bond cars, it does not survive. I mean, mixed really is the thing, cinema fan, because it's one of those movies that really goes for it and tries to do something different. So you can really appreciate it for being ambitious and trying to be different. But at the same time, when you take risks like that, you can. I mean, there's this whole section where like part of the thing is going after Blofeld again, and Blofeld is like at this weird like I don't know if it's a place he runs or if he's just there, but there's like this weird sort of like mountain retreat, right? It's like some sort of like spa, some sort of place for like the ultra rich. So Bond infiltrates it, pretending to be like some sort of Scottish lord or something, and he's putting on an accent. But Lazenby couldn't actually do the accent himself, so he's being dubbed. And it's really obvious he's being dubbed. And so you just see Lazenby walking around, speaking in this voice that in no way sounds like it's him. So that's part of it, I think. It seems really weird. Okay, what happens here is not at all realistic, because they managed to blow up the shack here, but not actually hurt the car. I'm not sure wooden planks would really stop a missile. Oh, okay, so they did drive out of it. Still, I don't know. I'm crying about like how unrealistic it is as they drive across a frozen lake, pushing a wooden cabin while getting missiles shot at them. There's a good bit too here. Again, I don't know how well you could do this, but it's pretty cleverly done, cutting the ice. I'd like to think that in his time off, Bond does something super unglamorous like ice fishing. Yeah, Never Say Never Again, I think is kind of stupid. I don't really get why they did it. I can't remember the background. It came out in '83, so that's the same year. When it went up against Octopussy at the box office, it is basically just a remake of Thunderball. It's kind of the same plot again. I don't know why Connery wanted to do it. I mean, I've seen it. It's been quite a few years since I've seen it. I wouldn't mind seeing it again. The only thing I'll say for it is like how like in the Craig Bonds, Felix Leiter is introduced, and I can't remember the name of the actor, but But they say, it's the first time, Leiter, he just like Bond, he's been in different movies, he's been recast. Like, we have a black actor. Well, actually, there was a black Felix in Never Say Never Again. But no, I'm not much of a fan of Never Say Never Again. It's kind of an interesting little oddity because it's an unofficial Bond movie, and yet it has Connery. Does it have Desmond Lewis as Q? Is he in it? Do you remember that? Because I think maybe he is. All right, so now we get to see that awesome car get like totally smashed up going down. Yeah. So actually, it's not destroyed. It's not like completely destroyed, like in. Or yes, it is, because he's gonna blow it up himself. Yeah, I knew it gets destroyed. So they have this whole bit here where they're being chased down the snowy mountain. They lost their car. They still have to drag the damn cello. Meanwhile, guys on skis are shooting at them. I think this is a really cool bit. I like it. I think this should be like one of like the iconic like scenes in the series, and yet, well, I think that. I guess most people don't, because most people don't even know the movie. And that's them riding the cello case down the mountainside while holding on to the cello. I think it's cool. The music picks up. They're getting shot at. Of course, there's a whole bit here where he blocks some of the bullets with the cello, and she later plays it like, no, that's not how cellos work. If a cello has a bullet hole in it, you have to throw that cello out because, it will not play properly after that. But it is, again, some artistic license here. But I love this. I love this whole thing. Bond and the girl. There it is. It's only one bullet. Sorry. She should be more like, wow, my, $100,000 cello has just been ruined. But no, for some reason it's playable. So yeah, so they have to get to the border. Once they're across the border, those guys don't have jurisdiction. I can't remember which border they're at. Let's see which border they're at. Right, so they're crossing from Bratislava into Austria. That's what they're doing, yeah. Nothing to declare except this cello, and they throw it up in the air to get under the gate. I think that's really cool. Okay, they did get a different cue. I couldn't remember or not. But, I think it's interesting that it exists, but no. And the other thing is, I don't really like Thunderball very much. Like, Thunderball, if you adjust for inflation, to this day, is the most financially successful Bond of all time. And that has less to do with how good it was and just sort of, the timeline of events and how big Bond had been. It's what, the 5th movie? I think, let's see, Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger. So it's the 4th movie. So, so Bond's like popularity has just skyrocketed. Sorry, some noise out there. Skyrocketed. So that's really why it did so well. I feel like Thunderball was really bloated. It's way too long. Part of it is because they were so enamored with those underwater scenes, which of course by their nature are slow. All right, so now we get to see, is his name Whitaker? So that's John Doe Baker, who is a deranged arms dealer, and he's having a meeting with Pushkin here. And as you can see, he's an arms dealer who's obsessed with war. Like, war is the best thing in the world. He's like, what's his name? He died, Ferrero, or whatever his name was, in the movie. Oh, come on, brain. Get out of Bond for a second. Hot Shots Part 2. War. It's fantastic. Like, but Whitaker or Boddicker or whatever the hell his name is, he's talking about it. He's talking very philosophically how much he thinks war is. And that's what he just said. What do you think of my hall here? And he has like Genghis Khan and Hitler and a bunch of great generals. And Pushkin says, butchers. And he says, yes, they are. They cut away society's weak flesh or something, So he's some guy that's totally enamored with war and conquest and all that shit. It's another one of those things what we see in movies. Like, you got your Cold War idealism. It's like, none of that matters to me. I'm just I've got my own philosophy. Fuck, there goes the camera again. I think, Cat, you're sitting on the cord. Sorry, Wednesday. I moved my poor cat, but I don't want to fuck this up. And as you can see, like, in his, like, showroom, he's got, like, plenty of weapons just, that he can grab in case somebody attacks him, which, of course, comes into it later on. Yeah, I heard that about James Brolin. I'm very glad he did not become Bond. I don't see it at all. It seems really weird. I mean, it's always easy to say in hindsight, decades after the fact, but I don't know. It is very hard to imagine James Brolin. And again, I'm not imagining old man James Brolin. I'm imagining him in that era. But it does not fit him. It does not work for me. I'm glad that didn't happen. I mean, James Brolin's like 100% American, isn't he? There's not too many roles where I feel like it's important to like cast within a nationality or like that. I mean, race is a whole thing. I'm not going to get into that, but of course, But I mean, I really feel like Bond should be in some way British. When they were casting this movie, besides Brosnan and Dalton, the other guy they really liked was Sam Neill. And I'm a big fan of Sam Neill, but again, I don't see him in the role. He doesn't seem striking enough to me. Sam Neill seems more like a guy that blends kind of into the background. And again, I'm a big fan of Sam Neill. I really like. Well, I mean, I would have to guess if they cast an American as Bond, he would at least try to attempt the accent. Otherwise, what the hell's the point? I mean, I have no idea. I can't think of Brolin doing accents in movies. That's why you have to hand it to like somebody like Sean Connery. He just never changed his accent for a single role. Not even when he played a Lithuanian-born Russian submarine commander. in The Hunt for Red October, which Sam Neill is in. And you know what Sam Neill does in that movie? A Russian accent. So you got Sam Neill talking to Sean Connery, giving him debriefings on the thing, and Sean Connery just talking his usual, harsh Scottish brogue. It's hilarious. And probably the weirdest casting of all choice is the fact that they made the movie Highlander. Oh, that's awful. Yeah. No wonder he didn't get it. Jesus, I mean, that's ridiculous. But I mean, Highlander, which is the movie about a Scottish warrior, and instead they cast the Belgian as the Scottish warrior, and Sean Connery. Okay, well, Sean Connery, he's one of the other Scottish guys. No, he's a Spanish guy. And they have a scene together where the Spanish guy, in the thick Scottish accent, talks to the Belgian guy in a weird muddled accent that Christopher Lambert always did, where it's like, we're not, Christopher Lambert's attempt to sound, I guess, American or whatever, which is always kind of muddled, having a discussion about Scotland, and the guy who sounds so Scottish saying, oh, that sounds terrible. You eat haggis? What a bizarre fucking scene from that standpoint. Like, that's the weirdest goddamn casting maybe ever. That scene is just bonkers to think of. But yeah, I love a guy like Christopher Lambert. He's Belgian. He's Belgian, isn't he? I think so. But he doesn't have like he suppresses the Belgian accent, doesn't sound French, the way like Jean-Claude Van Damme does. But like it's not quite there. It's an in the middle thing. I mean, it's the same thing for Sam Neill, right? Like Sam Neill's not British. Sam Neill, I think, is like New Zealand born but lived in Australia. He doesn't sound like he's from any of those places. He sounds European, but you can't nail it down beyond that. Like I don't know what Sam Neill sounded like when he was younger, but because of where he's lived and what he's done, like Sam Neill just has a weird in-between accent that doesn't seem to go anywhere. I mean, thank God for that too. Yeah, the very first time they had to recast Bond, the very first time for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, they went through a lot of people. Like they did not know what to do. As I said, I don't think it was either Broccoli or even possibly what's his name himself, who wanted Dalton back then, but Dalton was only 21, and Dalton said, I'm too young for the part. And back in the mid-'80s, when they were talking to Dalton again, he was old enough now, but he basically, at least in public, said he was not particularly interested in the role, and I think it was his wife that changed his mind. Right, so now we're in Tangiers. And the whole thing is like, okay, so I've talked to a lot of this, but if you're watching, that whole defection thing, it wasn't exactly a ploy. It was kind of a real defection, but it wasn't what Kalskov was doing. Right, it was a fake defection. Yeah. Right. So John Rhys Davis or whatever, his General Pushkin is, if you know what's going on in the plot, he's juggling a lot of balls in this movie. He's handling a lot of things. Like it's kind of crazy the lengths he's going to, just how detailed his plans are in this. He's got a lot going on. I mean, yeah, so he's the one that orchestrates the defection. So he's got a phony KGB defection, 2 separate fake assassination attempts, one carried out by the woman who's actually his girlfriend, and that's what's her name, who's with Bond now. I mean, what else is going on here? There's more than that. Of course, there's a couple real assassinations, and then there's the whole smuggling operation, which is basically trading weapons for opium, which they're doing in, I think, Afghanistan. So he's got a lot going on, and it's, all off the books or whatever. It's not anything official with the Russian government. This is what he's doing as sort of a rogue element all on his own. So he's really got a lot of balls in the air here. And then, of course, it sort of backfires on him because Whitaker, the guy he's working with, somewhat kind of betrays him, I guess. Yeah. So you got to give Pushkin credit. He's a very involved thing. So here comes the sort of the courtship of, God, get your character names straight. Get the courtship of Kara going on here, where he's going to the opera with her. So he is trying to seduce her to a certain extent, not just seduce her, but he is trying to get her to open up so she'll tell him stuff. And of course, he has not told her that he's a British agent. He told her that he's friends with Koskov. And Koskov is the one who bought her cello for her. I don't know if that's mentioned yet or not, but that's why she has such an expensive cello, which is, again, really would be ruined by now. It's funny because Jay and I on, our channel, Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension, the last movie we just did was Get Carter. So we talked a lot about Kane and his career. I mean, he would have had to, not to be too snobby about it, but Kane's accent is kind of like the anti-Bond, isn't it? Like, he would have to do something about his accent. Yes, Kane is 100% English, but he's got that, his accent is, more of a blue-collar Cockney type thing. I just can't imagine lazy-eyed Kane being like, Bond, James, but I think it would have been a goddamn disaster. And I think he's a great actor. I'm a big fan of Michael Caine. I like him in a lot of stuff. And as we said in that thing, he showed he's more versatile than maybe people thought when he gave such a good performance in Get Carter. Because in Get Carter, up to that point, he had done more sort of like charming leading man stuff. Of course, Alfie, he was really known for. Whereas in Get Carter, he has some of that charm, but he also has that sort of like ruthlessness and coldness. And Bond isn't 100% that, but Bond is part of that, right? So, acting-wise, he could do it, I guess. I just, physically, and the way he sounds, it's hard for me to do it. But again, there's an alternate reality where he was Bond instead of Moore, and, people would have thought it was 100% fine, so I don't know. But, again, decades after the fact, it's hard to, But, I'm a big fan of Michael Caine. Michael Caine was a very good actor. He's 88 years old now. He's had a great career. Right. So Bond here is having another meeting with the guy that he was with at the first mission to get Koskov out, unbeknownst to her, and he's saying, meet me tonight at the circus and go to the Ferris wheel. So again, he gets to take her on a little date here. He's here for business, but it works out nicely because it looks like he's just taking her on a date. And I don't know. I think it's nice. I feel like there is chemistry. And I know at this point in the plot, Bond is sort of stringing her along because he's trying to get her to trust him while he's lying his ass off to her so he can find out the information he needs to know. But the whole point is he does really care for her. So I don't know. But there he is, winning prizes for her at the, it's all kind of charming. They seem to have a nice chemistry together. She's really smitten with him. Again, the fact that he saved her life a couple times certainly helps, but he's also fucking Timothy Dalton, so. Maybe I'm not the authority on this, but, I never think of too many of the Bonds as handsome. Women have their own thing because everybody thinks Sean Connery was, so sexy back in the day. But I really think that Brosnan and Dalton were the handsome Bonds. I don't think there were any bad-looking Bonds. But it's funny how much people laid into Craig. Do you remember that whole sentiment, that anti-Craig movement that was going on when he was cast? I remember there was a whole web page dedicated to how shitty they thought he'd be. For one thing, he was the shortest Bond ever. He was 5'11", as if that's really short. And they didn't like that he was fair-haired because all the Bonds had dark hair, and they said he was really ugly. And my mother really hates him as Bond, and she says because she finds him so unattractive. So I'm not saying those people are wrong, but man, they went hard on that. I certainly don't think it was too short. 5'11", 6 feet. It's an inch in difference. It's not going to be. I know I'm too short to play Bond. There's a lot of reasons why I couldn't play Bond. But let's say I was British and blah, blah, blah. I'm about 5'8". Maybe 5'8.5" if I'm generous to myself. I would say that's too short for Bond. I don't think of myself as a short person, but I think Bond is taller than that. But 5'11", that's fine. I'm not a fan of Henry Cavill in anything. I just don't like him. I can't think of anything where I've enjoyed his performance or liked anything he's done. I can't think of a single thing. Like, I can't think of anything where I think, oh, he's goddamn terrible, he's ruining the movie. I just mean, I feel like if you're going to be like an iconic character like Bond, you have to have something. And now, I mean, he has his fans, clearly. I see stuff on Twitter about, people like him. I don't like him. So, anyway, like I said, I'm excited to see what happens next. Who will be the next Bond? I almost just want to get this last Craig movie out of the way. Like, obviously, I hope it's good. But I felt really, yeah, see, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not good at current actors, to tell you the truth. Like, think of an actor and it's like, no, they're too old now. Like, it's hard to think of somebody who I think is in the age range, because I think Bond minimum age is 35, maximum age is maybe still under 45, because you want to get a few movies out of. Ideally, you want to get 3 or 4 movies out of any actor playing Bond, I think. I think 5 would be the sweet spot. In a perfect world, you'd have an actor play Bond maybe 5 times and then move on. Of course, it's not a perfect world. It's not what happened. We had guys like for Dalton here who only got to play him for 2. We've had guys like Connery who left and then came back. We had Roger Moore who was in too long, and now Craig's been in too long. So, I mean, I would want to cast somebody under 45 for sure, but probably over 35. And after that, I mean, I want them to be British in some way. Like, I don't care if they're from Wales or Scotland, fucking Ireland. I mean, I guess you could have like an Australian-born Bond. I'm not going to flip out if that happens. But I mean, in that neighborhood, somewhere between 5'11" and 6'3", I guess, something like that. Lazenby is the tallest Bond. He was 6'2.5". So, I mean, everybody's a pretty similar height there. I don't want to quibble too much on it. But yeah, I mean, it would be noticeable if somebody, say my height, played Bond. You'd be like, it's a little short. As somebody who doesn't want to quibble on that too much, that's one of the many things that annoy me with the movie Solo. Is if you watch the movie Solo, you've got I don't remember the name of the guy that plays Han, and then you've got, why is my mind going blank? But, everybody loves him. Glover. You got Glover as Lando. And they're both fine actors, and I guess they're well cast. But the fact is, both of them are like 5'8", 5'9". Whereas, Harrison Ford and Billy D. Williams were both over 6 feet. So, to me, there's a noticeable difference there. It looks like, okay, sometime between when they were 25 and when they were 35, they grew like another 3 or 4 inches. That actually did kind of take me out of the movie a little bit. And I realize you could say, that's really quibbling, but I don't know. I just couldn't unsee it. Because one of the things is Lando often wears a cape, and I feel like you have to have a certain amount of height to pull off a cape. And if you see Glover in a cape, he looks a bit short. Anyway, so yeah, I often think about who I want to see replace Craig, and people name all these people, and I'm just like, I don't know these people, because I'm not up enough on current actors to tell you the truth. So there's probably some people out there that are really good, and if you suggest them to me, I'll be like, I don't know who that is. So I don't know. I'll have to look into it more. I've seen some really ridiculous takes on Twitter where people have suggested things that I think are stupid as hell. And I don't know if you're going to ask, but I mean, I wouldn't care if there was a black Bond. That would be fine. I just want him to be British. I mean, there's black British people. So, I mean, a black Bond would be fine. I know for a long time people said Idris Elba. Yeah, Idris Elba could have done it 10 years ago, but now he's well into his 50s. So maybe some other black British actor, but not Idris Elba. He's too old. All right, so he's had his little meeting there. They had their nice thing. Now he's acting all serious, and she doesn't know why, and they have to leave. So now we're going back to Tangiers. Well, Bond actually hasn't been to Tangiers yet. Because he's trying to follow the trail to catch up with whoever this behind-the-scenes puppet master thing is yet. I don't think at this point he's aware. He knows about Whitaker or Whitaker's involvement. All he knows basically is that they've been suckered by Koskov, and that Pushkin is involved in some way. I think. I don't think he knows like everything at this point. Obviously I haven't paid full attention. But now we're getting to the whole thing about the embezzlement. Yeah, I mean, here Pushkin is in Tangier, so that's why Bond has come here. So he's gonna come and just straight up confront him to find out what's going on. And she doesn't really know what's going on at this point. I think he's kept her in the dark, but she still trusts him. Right, and he doesn't just come. Yeah, there's. Oh, I won't spoil it, but there's they have a kind of an interesting plan. Remember when I mentioned fake assassinations? Well, one of them is coming up. So Tangiers in Morocco. I've never had much interest in visiting too many of the African countries, but I've always had interest in Morocco. I think that would be a cool place to go. I mean, lots of places. I mean, one of the things that's great about the Bond series is there's all sorts of interesting exotic locations. Morocco looks pretty interesting. All right, so there's Pushkin at his hotel. Obviously, he's got security detail. Yeah, see, I'm a big fan of Ewan McGregor, but even now that he's older, he still kind of has kind of like boyish looks that I don't think work for Bond. I mean, I like Ewan McGregor a lot. Big fan. I remember most of the speculation, about Casino Royale. A lot of the speculation about who Bond was going to be before Craig got there. A lot of people wanted Clive Owen, who I think would have been okay. I have a hard time seeing Clive Owen as tough. I mean, he's been tough in movies, like he's in Shoot 'em Up and stuff. I don't know. I mean, the whole thing is it's movies, right? But it's so that ideally you can make anybody look tough in a movie. It's acting and camera tricks and blah blah blah. But some people I just don't buy as tough. Like there's a really good movie, or not a movie, but a movie a lot of people like. Is it one of Michael Mann's movies? Michael Mann, whatever. He did Thief. Everybody loves that movie. I like that movie okay, but I have a big problem with James Caan. Because in the movie, James Caan is like a real badass that intimidates people and people are afraid of. And I personally can't buy it. He looks like just an idiot acting tough to me. And so sometimes that happens to me in movies where you have somebody playing a tough guy and I don't buy it. They don't seem tough to me. They don't seem intimidating. They don't seem scary. They don't seem capable of violence. And that's how I felt about James Caan in Thief. Like he's getting the better of people and threatening people, and I don't see it. It does not work for me. So that's why I can't really like the movie, despite the fact that it's a really well-plotted movie, really well-shot movie. It's a good movie. It has a good story and everything. Now that's an interesting universe, because you have to think if Christian Bale did Casino Royale, I don't even know what his schedule will be like, because at that point he's already Batman. He was in Batman Begins. So what happens if he's in Casino Royale? I don't know if they can finish that Batman trilogy, because the James Bond thing is so demanding. Even when the movies aren't being made, like, I don't know. I feel like there's no way he could have done both. And that could have been bad, because imagine that Christian Bale couldn't do The Dark Knight because he was doing Quantum of Solace. Oh my God, that's horrifying to think. Oh man, I don't even want to think about that. I mean, Christian Bale always surprises me, because when he was cast as Batman, at first I didn't really see it, but then he did it. So while he's not somebody I would think of as Bond, he's always delivered. So I have to imagine he probably could have done it. I mean, Christian Bale's a very good actor. I know he doesn't have a great reputation and people don't like him and stuff, but he's a good actor, and he's always been a good actor. Right back when he was a kid, one of my favorite movies, and again, if you go back really far on the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension channel, one of our first episodes that we did is Empire of the Sun, that he's the star of, and he's just 13 in that movie, and he's fantastic. And I love that movie. It's a movie that, it's one to consider one of Spielberg's forgotten movies that no one talks about. And I think it's a great, great movie. Love it. I've watched it a bunch of times. Holds up. But anyway. Right, so Blondie is here to kill him. So we missed this whole thing where he has this talk with Pushkin, and he denies all this, and he's just well, they'll have to die. So yeah. So Blondie guy is here to kill him, but it looks like someone beat him to it, because Bond apparently shoots him and gets out of there. So yeah, so obviously they faked it with blood packs. So yeah, so Bond and Pushkin have faked his own assassination, basically to save him from a real one that they knew might be coming. because Blondie here, I don't know if he's working on Whitaker's orders or the Russian government or what, but obviously he's no longer helping Pushkin. Yeah. What's interesting is like Bond's original mission was to kill Pushkin. That was his original mission. But as he uncovered details, he realized, that would be disastrous. See, that's somebody I never would have thought of. Like, that is interesting though. I see what you're saying, but I never would have thought of that myself. I'm really not good at playing. I feel bad because casting is important to me. I feel like I'm really good at criticizing what I think are bad casting choices or ideas, but I'm not very good at providing good solutions. Although, I don't know. Like, speaking of Batman again, like, what do you think of this? Like, there was, of course, a lot of speculation before Batman Begins came out and Christian Bale got the role. I wanted Guy Pearce to play Batman Bruce Wayne. That was who I wanted. And what's funny is, if they just did the Joker movie with what the hell's his name? Joaquin Phoenix. And I wanted again, this is like circa 2005, 2006. I wanted Joaquin Phoenix, and again, they didn't even know they're going to have it. But I thought, if there's going to be a Harvey Dent, I think Joaquin Phoenix would be a good Harvey Dent. And then, in the possible future, Two-Face. So I wanted him as I wanted Joaquin Phoenix as like Harvey Dent, possibly Two-Face. I wanted Guy Pearce as Batman. And this wasn't my own idea, but at the time, a lot of people were pushing for the idea that Paul Bettany could be the Joker. And I didn't have a better idea than that. I thought that would be good. So this is back, just around before Batman Begins came out. Those were all things I thought were good ideas. And none of them happened, and it all worked out. But it is something I think about now and again. I think that could have been cool. All right, so Bond's being honeypotted here. But it's not bad guys, actually. I think it's Felix. Yeah, Felix is in this movie. So now the CIA is going to say, oh, guess what? We're involved in this mess, too. This is it. I wouldn't call it a convoluted plot, as long as you pay attention, but it is a fairly complex one with a lot of moving parts. So now we're going to throw the CIA into the mix here. So, yeah, they bring him to this boat, and turns out it's not a bad guy. It's Felix. He just says, I figured this is the fastest way to go. Felix plays a bigger role, and this is a new actor. Just like Bond, just like Moneypenny. We've got a new actor in a recurring role. Now we've got a new Felix, and he'll be back in the next one. What's it called? License to Kill, and he'll actually play a bigger role because it's sort of what kicks the plot off is that Felix is getting married at the start of License to Kill, and that all goes horribly wrong. But I mean, what's different about that is like when they were making the Craig movies, unlike pretty much every other era, they had sort of this planned arc of them being connected. So it would have been really kind of weird and jarring, I think, to see anybody who's not Craig in any movie, that's part of that continuity. Because everything else would have been like the same. It would have been like everybody else would have been the same cast, I guess, and it would have been. You're supposed to think that this is the same Bond. I mean, every once in a while, there'll be like a reference in one of the Bond movies that maybe references something done in a Bond that starred a different one, but not usually. Usually it's like every Bond is its own continuity. And even then, they're kind of fast and loose as far as continuity goes. They don't, especially like Moore. The Moore ones are all over the place. But although in a weird way, one of the things that Moore does at the start, probably the weirdest callback, is the start of, I think it's For Your Eyes Only. So that's 1981. The whole opening sequence there doesn't have anything to do with the main plot. It's one of the cold openings, and it harkens back to him finally dealing with Blofeld and getting rid of him, and it shows him going to his wife's grave, saying that, yes, the events of On Her Majesty's Secret Service actually definitely happened. So that's kind of weird. So yeah, I think it would have been kind of jarring to have Craig get replaced by pretty much anyone before what most people would consider sort of the Craig arc or the Craig world was finished. Because I mean, I have to assume that now that Craig is done, this is the last Craig movie for sure. The next movie's not going to like pick up on it. I bet you they'll probably just do another sort of reboot type thing. I assume that's what they'll do. But I mean, as far as like being right for the role, I mean, Bale wouldn't have aged out of it yet. I don't think. I mean, I'm not sure how old Bale is, but you know, he's believable to still be maybe early 40s. I think. I haven't really seen him in anything lately. What's the last thing I saw Christian Bale in? All right, so now he's going to finally come clean with Kara and tell her some stuff now that they've managed to save Pushkin's life and get away. So he manages, you know, I'm not a friend of Koskos. I'm a British agent, and I'm actually looking for him. But now we've got now somebody's behind this whole thing, suckering the Russians and the British, trying to stir up tensions, and of course that's Whitaker. And Whitaker's only trying to do it because, for the most sensible reason of all, is that he just wants profit. Right, so she doesn't want to believe him now that Yuri was willing to get rid of him. And she does get mad. She says, and she's right here. She says, you pretended to love me. And it's true. That's all true. But he was still keeping her safe. So then she says, no, you're actually KGB. But no, he's not. Which is a weird swing. I mean, it's just as bad, isn't it? All right, she drugged him. That was a bad idea, Kara. That was a really bad idea. And this is where he tells her, just as he's passing, I was the man who sent to kill you. That's why she's got the wound on her hand. And here comes Blondie McKiller. Those guys always have names. They get named in the movie, but God knows I can't remember their names. Who is Blondie McKiller? All right, Necros. That's actually a really memorable and good name. So yeah, that's Necros, our highly efficient assassin henchman, whatever. And he's doing the ambulance bit again. Man, this keeps working for him. So keep going. So now they've been captured and they're going to fly them to Afghanistan. Isn't it funny in retrospect, like the various movies in the 80s that like basically take the side sort of Afghanistan? I mean, that was very much, I guess the British too, but that was very much the American side view of things in the 80s. Of course, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan at the end of 1979 on Christmas Day, I think. And all throughout the 80s had this, invasion of Afghanistan going. And of course, with the Cold War going on, the U.S. thought, well, we have to do everything we can to help the Afghan people and protect them from the Soviet aggression. And like that's how like that's how Rambo 3 ends. Like Rambo 3 is basically Rambo running around Afghanistan, like blowing up the commies. And then like at the end, it's like dedicated to the people of Afghanistan, like keep fighting. And then it's not like Afghanistan was ever really thrilled with America. I mean, I guess they liked American support, but I mean, we all know how things turned out. Like the CIA helped training the Taliban and arming them and stuff. That didn't turn out to be so good, but some short-sightedness there. They just thought whoever is, not on the communist side, that's who we'll back. It was basically American foreign policy in places like that. So that's what you get. And here, once again, we're going to get, and again, I'm not trying to paint the Afghanis during this, the Soviet Afghanistan war as like bad guys, because they're not. Their homeland is invaded and they're trying to fight back against the hostile invading force, regardless of what their government was doing at the time. Ordinary innocent people were paying for it with their lives. And of course, the Russians, you can't sympathize with that way they acted. They did that whole scorched earth thing, right? Like, we're not even going to deal with you guys on the ground. We're just going to, raise villages to the ground and bomb them from above, really vicious stuff. But I just mean, so once again, we're going to get the Afghanistan sort of side of the movie here. Oh, isn't that clever? They're smuggling diamonds in the ice, doing an organ transplant. So now, of course, now that she's completely fucked him over, she understands what's going on now, and she wants to help him. So she's not actually bound. I mean, she's a prisoner, but she's not handcuffed or anything like he is. So she's going to try to help him out here. But anyway, they're going to get mixed up with the Mujahideen, or however you say it, which were basically, like sort of guerrilla Afghani forces during the war. They were really outmatched by the Soviet military machine. The Soviets had, armored tank divisions and stuff, and the Mujahideen had rifles and were riding around on horseback. I mean, and Bond is going to join up with them in this movie, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, the Mujahideen, or again, I'm probably saying it wrong, who started out quite noble, just defending their homeland from foreign aggression. Some of them did go on to be part of things like the Taliban, which is not good. But anyway, it's 1987. We don't know that stuff yet. Just like how the U.S. thought it was a great idea to back Iraq because Iraq was Iran's enemy. So Iraq will always, be on the U.S.'s side, right? Anyway, and here's Koskov trying to say like how smart he is and how he won't get in trouble for any of this because he's actually been on a secret mission all along, and how the Russians are going to love him. This is good. We have an old saying: "Duty has no sweethearts." Bond has a good retort here. We have an old saying too, Georgie, and you're full of it. Not bad dialogue. Fits Bond. But I mean, it's a good movie in that you get to see sort of the range that Dalton has to play Bond. He can be witty, he can be charming, he can be cold and ruthless in a way, and professional. Because he doesn't have like that devil-may-care attitude that Roger Moore has in the movies. Like, he takes it seriously, and sometimes he's even reluctant, and he chafes under some of his command, like the whole thing. Like, he was just supposed to shoot her. They were like, shoot the assassin, but he made a judgment call that she wasn't a real assassin and it would be wrong to shoot her. And, of course, that's really played up in License to Kill, right? I'm not going to spoil everything for License to Kill, but a big part of the reason why it's even called License to Kill is he kind of winds up going rogue himself. He's upset about what MI6 is doing and what they're telling him to do, and they basically take him off a case, and it's kind of like the rogue cop thing. You're off the case, Callahan. But anyway, and they revoke his License to Kill, which, of course, in the world of James Bond is a real thing. Like, he can legally murder people, although how does that exactly work? Because he has been given the license to kill by MI6, which is Britain. So, okay, he can legally kill people in Britain, but he's killing people all over the place, and I don't think MI6 could get him out of that. But anyway, that's part of the ring. And what's funny is if you first hear about the movie, you think, oh, now like he's operating rogue and his license to kill has been revoked. Well, yeah, he doesn't care, though. He still kills people. He's like, okay, I'm not licensed anymore, but I'm still going to do it. But anyway, so that's another thing that was very different from any of the Connery or the Moore movies, is that you have Bond not just chafing under his command, but like actively working against it. I mean, in the end, it all works out, of course, but for a while, he's a rogue agent. He doesn't just have like other governments and bad guys coming after him. He has his own people going. I mean, God, no. Everybody loves Tom Holland. Why does everybody love Tom Holland? He's fine. I mean, he's cool, I guess. I don't know. No, I couldn't at all. Not in any fucking world. No. That seems so crazy to me. I mean, I don't even really like him as Peter Parker. He's decent, I guess. And after that, I've never really seen him in movies. But yeah, I've heard people talk about Tom Holland as like something like Bond, and no, I can't at all. And maybe I'm short-sighted, and maybe I'm not good at picturing people when they're older. But again, he's kind of like a Ewan McGregor. He's very, even for his age, I know he is a bit older, he's very boyish, which is one of the reasons why he works as a Peter Parker. Because Peter Parker always sort of has that boyish look to him. I mean, as much as you age him up. I mean, in the comics, Peter Parker is he's never supposed to get older than like maybe 26 or something like that. Oh yeah, don't forget, he's got his gadgets. Rule Britannia. Knockout gas. I talked through it, but this whole thing after him getting locked up on this Soviet, in this prison on this Soviet military base in Afghanistan, is you got like this Sergeant Warden guy giving this big speech about how tough, how mean he's going to be and how Bond's not going to like being here and stuff. And like, he's in the cell for like half a second and he immediately breaks out. I mean, Bond villain, the sky's the limit. I mean, anybody, Bond villain, the whole point is they can be anybody. They're different. They're all over the place. So, I mean, yeah, I think there's all sorts of potential for Bond villains because they don't have to conform to any sort of thing. You can have female Bond villains, male Bond villains, old Bond villains, young Bond villains, Bond villain of, any nationality or race. So, I mean, the sky's the limit there. Just many possibilities. I mean, obviously, you want somebody that can play a villain. But, I mean, beyond that, it's not like as specialized a role as Bond, where, I mean, ideally you want someone within a certain age range, within a certain, physical thing. So here, also in the prison, is a guy. He's one of the leaders of the Mujahideen, and he helps him out. she's totally back on board again. I mean, why wouldn't she be? I mean, without him, she's stuck on a Soviet base in the middle of Afghanistan, so she really does need him. So yeah, actually, one of the things that just disappoints me of the Craig era is I feel like they kind of went really on the nose with the Bond villains. I mean, they did like Javier Bardem. I think that's all wrong for Tarantino's style. Like, Tarantino doesn't seem like the type of guy that if he's going to make a movie within a franchise, he's going to like conform to that like style. He'll just be like, I'm going to make it my own. Which, I mean, is usually an admirable thing, but I think it would have been really off the rails. I feel like I don't, just because somebody makes a movie a certain way doesn't mean they're incapable of doing it a different way. Like, I think Tarantino would have enough sense not to like have everybody, throwing F-bombs in the James Bond movie. I know that. And I think he would understand also that while there's a certain amount of violence, you can't be as over the top and brutal as a lot of his movies show. So, I mean, I don't think it would just be Tarantino's Bond and, it's like some sort of shitty exploitation thing. Like, I think he would have the sense to not do that. But I don't know. I don't think that's for the best. Tarantino's better just doing his own thing. Like, his movies take pieces, like, it's all about the stuff he likes, right? Like an homage to this and that. But it's still his own thing. Like, I don't think, people talked about Tarantino wanting to do like a Star Trek movie. Like, I don't think like big franchises are like a place for a guy like Tarantino. He's better off doing his own thing. But no, I don't think you go off the rails and like, it's not like there will be a Bond movie that's like Pulp Fiction. Like, if anybody says that, they're not being sensible. I don't think Tarantino is that, ridiculous. Where he's just like, Samuel Jackson's going to be Bond now, and he's going to be from the Bronx. And, I don't think he would do that. But it's just as well it didn't happen. Especially because I think Casino Royale is a great, great movie. I love it. It's easily my favorite Craig movie. I feel like it set the bar too high because I think all the others, I mean, I don't think the others are bad. I think Quantum of Solace is bad, and then the others are just sort of a letdown. I thought Casino Royale is great. It's one of my favorites. Maybe that's number 5 for me. It could be number 5 after I name my top 4. I hold it in very high regard. I liked it a lot. We'll see. Pierce Brosnan, no, he's too old. Pierce Brosnan's already like 51 or 52 by then, so no. I mean, he was already looking a little old and Die Another Day, and that's 3 years before that, so no. I mean, I don't have anything against Uma Thurman. She can play a femme fatale, certainly. And I don't have any objection to Samuel Jackson as Felix. That's fine. Because Felix's age doesn't matter as much. Because Samuel Jackson would have been pushing 60 at that time. He would have been close to 60. But again, he looks a bit, he's aged pretty well. He doesn't really look his age. It took a while for Samuel Jackson to start look like an old man. So I don't have any problem with those casting, but Pierce Brosnan, you just couldn't keep him at that point. You just couldn't. Right. So he's lucky that he did decide to help that guy out, because this guy's a pretty big deal, as it turns out. He's not just one of these Mujahideen. He's like one of the head guys. Maybe he is the head guy. So it was definitely a smart thing springing him. I think she looks really attractive in that Soviet military attire too. Sometimes certain looks. I mean, she looks attractive through the whole movie, obviously, but something about that's really doing it for me. It's funny. I grew up with such a fixation on blondes and loving blondes, and in my life, I've dated like 0 blondes. Now, I've had some dalliances with a couple blondes in my life, but I've never had a blonde girlfriend, and I've never had like a serious relationship with a blonde. I mean, there's still time. I'm single now. Although I haven't even dated a Canadian in 10 years. But we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, I think she's gorgeous. I mean, I don't think there's any need of it, really. I think there's a good spot for them. I mean, I don't feel like I watch any of the Bond movies, including the most modern movies, which are probably push the envelope the most, and feel like they'd be improved by, say, stronger violence, more cursing, or more sexual content. I don't feel like that would help or improve any of the movies. So I don't think it's necessary. I think it could work. You could have one. I wouldn't be like, oh, you've ruined everything. But I just say it's a level that you don't really need to go to. It's kind of how I feel. I don't know. I mean, certainly I can imagine a lot of these Bond movies. Like, how much more enjoyment would I get if I got to see some of these classic Bond girls do nude scenes? You know, but I don't know. That maybe that would lower it a little bit too. I don't know. Although, in a certain way, you know, I don't want to. Because this is one of our big problems with our society is how we make it seem like sex is so dirty or bad or something. So maybe saying lower isn't right, because I don't think like if you have a movie where an actress shows off her naked body, or an actor, that is somehow like sleazy or bad. You know, I mean, it all depends on how it's done. People talk about like tasteful nudity. I mean, certainly you can do tasteful stuff, but as I've said before, like unless I realize how in certain movies, like if you have a part in the story where characters have sex, that might be an important part of the story, because it might like really be important. Like it might mean they've taken the relationship to another level. It might mean they're having an affair. It could have lots of implications. So I understand why a sex scene can be in a movie, but I've never understood sex scenes that actually show a bunch of stuff, because they can't show real sex. It's not pornographic. So it's simulated sex. In a lot of movies, they don't even really try. You know, they might have some nudity and some making out and some rolling around. I don't know why any of that's in movies, to tell you the truth. Do you want to get the audience all horny? Is my question. In between scenes of people talking or having gunfights or car chases, is it important to have a scene where the audience gets all hot and bothered and watches some really attractive people get it on? To me, like, the old way of doing sex scenes, because they weren't allowed to do them, was just as fine. Like, they start to kiss a little and then, I don't know, you show the curtains blowing the wind. It's understood that they have sex. Because even in a movie where it's an important part of the plot, like, things change because these people... I feel like the implication is enough. I've never really understood sex scenes in like mainstream movies. I don't get why they're there. You can say, "Oh, this actor's really hot. This actor's like." You watch something like Monsters Ball, which has fairly graphic. Again, they're sex scenes. It's simulated sex, not real sex, but as close as you can get in there between like fucking Billy Bob Thornton and what's her name, Halle Berry. I don't get why that's there. I realize it's important to point out, okay, they're having an affair now. And sex is, and you can say sex is a big part of it. It's less to do with about love, but it's more about the intensity, because she's all fucked up about like her husband or whatever being on death row, but and all that. But then there's some really intense, really graphic sex scenes, and I'm not uncomfortable watching this, but I have to wonder what it feels like to go watch that movie in a theater. What are you supposed to be thinking or feeling in that moment? So yeah, I've never really gotten, and I know that's not just all what our rating means, but I've never really understood the need for like having like sex scenes in like an ordinary mainstream movie. It seems, I mean, gratuitous, not because I think it's in bad taste. I just don't understand what the aim is for. I know it's people like having like sexy stuff in movies, like in Bond, you have sexy girls in like the those movies, what are they? The Fast and the Furious movies, you always have scenes where they go to big parties and there's lots of like tits and ass everywhere. I get that as like background stuff, but I don't really get like putting it right in front of us. Like, here is a big sex scene between the characters. Like, to me, if a sex scene is going to happen, just say that it happened and move on. Anyway. I have not played that one. I've played a lot of the ones that they made, because after, of course, the success of the GoldenEye game, they made a lot of Bond games hoping to sort of recapture that. Some based on movies, some were just sort of sequels and out-of-continuity things and blah, blah, blah. And I played a lot of them, but I did not play that one. I don't even remember which one that was. How old is that? What era are we talking? All right, so, see, there. He definitely had sex with her, but we didn't see anything, and that's fine. So now they're going to ride out with the Mujahideen, and I apologize that I'm probably keep saying it wrong. But they're lucky, because now they have a common enemy, these Russians, on the base, and now he's gotten some equipment. Although they know they're not going to just charge at them, because that would be suicide, so Bond's going to have to work a little plan in here. So it's an air base, military base. So that's Kamran Shah, who they helped. Mujahideen. So yeah, Mujahideen. I'm mostly saying it right. Yeah, I'm looking at it written down to make sure. So the whole thing here that we blabbed through is that Koskov is using Soviet funds, and he's using them to buy big shipments of opium, because of course that's the drug of the land. Yeah, that's about right. You know what? Maybe I did play it because that's around the time I played a lot of those. Oh, that's cool. You know, it's very possible I did play it because 2002, I was playing a lot of that stuff. So that's what, like PlayStation 2 or GameCube or something. I didn't own it, but there's a very good chance I did play it. Maybe somebody had it or I rented it. Because they made quite a few. GoldenEye came out in 97, and like for the next bunch of years, they made a bunch of Bond film games, trying to capitalize. And I played a lot of them, and none of them were as good as GoldenEye. I'm not sure what introduced me to Bond as a kid. This movie's one of the earliest. It's one of the reasons why I like it so much, is because I have very old memories of watching it. But I remember back in the late '90s when the second Pierce Brosnan movie, Tomorrow Never Dies, came out. Back then, I used to get TBS, and TBS, of course, was notorious for showing movies on TV, but heavily edited and with super long commercial breaks. And they had this thing called 15 Days of 007, where they would play all the Bond movies, all the current Bond, all the movies up to the, well, of course, that. And that was the first time I watched a lot of those. Although maybe not this one. Not all of them. I have some older memories of being a younger kid, of seeing this movie, of seeing For Your Eyes Only, and maybe seeing, I can't remember, but some unspecified Connery one. I have old memories of being a little kid seeing those. But the first time I was like aware I was watching Bond and watching them start to finish was around then. It was around 96, 97, around the time leading up to the release of Tomorrow Never Dies, when TBS would do their 15 Days of 007 and show all the shows. And I taped a few of them, which took up a massive amount of room because the commercials were so long. Like, once it got to commercial, you could get up, have a snack, go to the bathroom, run around your house. Like, they were like 10 minutes sometimes. I couldn't believe how long the commercial breaks were. And sometimes they had like little dumb skits in between too. They had this whole thing where they had orangutans dressed up as Bond characters and they would like dub them, and it was so stupid. Okay, I'm getting a sense of your age. Yeah, I remember the first time I watched GoldenEye. A friend had rented it. It couldn't have been. It must have been sometime in '96, I guess. Because the first Bond I saw in theater was Tomorrow Never Dies, and I've seen every Bond in theater since then. I'm pretty sure. Did I miss any? No, I didn't miss any. I've seen every Bond in theater since Tomorrow Never Dies. Right, so that whole thing there of putting the thing over his face and pretending to load the truck and then just staying in it, like Batman does the same thing in in the second Ra's al Ghul episode, where he traces him down. Like, Batman does the exact same thing, like to get in with to infiltrate Ra's al Ghul's like desert base. He dresses up as like, one of those camel riding or horse riding guys with the thing on his face, and then he starts loading, and he just walks off pretending he's one of those guys. And Bond does the exact same thing here. Technically, the comic that inspired the show predates this, but anyway, I remember thinking that right off though, because that episode, yeah, Batman and Bond do the exact same thing. It's not specified what country Batman is in, if it's in Afghanistan or what, but it's some Middle Eastern desert country. It's the same idea, and you've got guys with the things on their heads and stuff. Yeah, but GoldenEye was big for two reasons. One, because the movie brought Bond back when a lot of people said the franchise was dead, and it was a great movie. And then the fact that they made a game out of it, and it was a phenomenon in a time when, and it's still kind of true that like games based on movies sucked. Like 99% of them were terrible. And this was like the first like good one in forever, and it was really good. It was a phenomenon, and because of my age at the time, it like took over my life for a while. I didn't even own an N64, but Ryan did, and I had another friend, Matthew, that did, and we were constantly sleeping over each other's houses and stuff. So to give you an idea, I would have been 14 at this time. So we just had crazy long sessions. We'd have like we'd go to school, and then for weekends we'd spend like as much of that 48 hours as possible like awake and playing that game together and with other friends and stuff. Like, we just lived that game. So his ruses worked. He's now unloading supplies onto the base. Because while the Russians were actively fighting against the Afghans, it didn't mean they didn't have some they could make do what they wanted, I guess. So at this point, I'm trying to remember what he's even trying to do. You know, I know the whole thing is he wants to blow up their opium shipment, I guess, to cut off the thing. So he's going to plant a bomb on their big. They're trying to get, you know, ship the opium out on this big, huge cargo plane that you're going to see. So he has this idea to put a bomb on it to blow it up to, you know, get rid of it and dry up the funds, because they're using the open funds for these arms deals and stuff that are bad for everybody. And of course, that Whitaker is Whitaker is profiting from. Yeah, so here he goes. Yeah, so he's smuggled the bomb on, disguised as the other cargo. But the plan, of course, is not going to go completely as needed. He's not even trying to hide his face there. Oh, and look who he runs right into. So now the plan is kind of screwed, because Necro and Koskov have seen him, and now he's one man alone on a plane surrounded by a base full of hostile soldiers. But he's James Bond. I think he'll find his way out of it. Right, but they don't want to shoot at him because they don't want to destroy the plane. But here comes a nice assist from the Mujahideen. Yeah, I gotta remember that. So a good action sequence here. Getting attacked by the guys on horses, and of course so much for your showers. There's still a bit more to go here, because while this is sort of the climax of the film, he still has to deal with Whitaker after this. And I mean, it's done fairly quickly, and it's a little anticlimactic in a way, because it's just sort of a one-on-one with a jerk arms dealer after he did all the more adventure stuff. But I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's a Bond film, so you need to have a certain amount of action in it. This movie is about 2 hours, 10 minutes long, which does not make it particularly long for a Bond film. Maybe a bit more of the era. I mean, the Craig movies have really kind of stretched things out. They're kind of too long, if you ask me. But I mean, this wasn't the first one to be this long. As I said, I think Thunderball was quite long. Too long, I would have to say. But I mean, this movie is over 2 hours, but I mean, moves at a pretty brisk pace, keeps the action up, keeps things going. I don't think there's ever any lulls or anything. I don't think there's any scenes that you really need to cut out or even cut down. I know I'm biased. This is my favorite Bond, and I'm like the only person in the world. I don't think I've ever known anybody else who this is their favorite Bond movie, and I can't say it's the best. I'm just saying it's my favorite. But yeah, still love it. And I just feel like it's a shame that Dalton didn't get to make that third film, because I'm sure it could have been really good. I haven't watched the features on this in a while. There's even some deleted scenes that I probably watched at some point. Ooh, this has the Living Daylights music video. That's great. Aha. Are Aha still together? Do they still tour? I wonder. Can he still hit the high note and take on me? If he can, 30 years later, I'm impressed. Right. So his only plan here is like, you know, I'll just have to take the plane. Which is unfortunate, because he's got a bomb on it that's counting down. Oh, she acquits herself a bit, knocks out a soldier. So she's not just always some helpless damsel in distress. And of course, the Bond girls are always different, right, too. They always have different roles to play and levels that they're at. Shit, why is my camera going out again? I swear I didn't touch anything. What is going on? Okay, I'll try switching cameras again. This worked last time. Let's switch the camera. There's the ordinary FaceTime camera, you see. Okay, that fixes it. I don't know why that's happening. That should only happen like if the cord gets bumped or something. I kicked my poor cat out of here ages ago when she did it. And now she's coming because it's after midnight. She's supposed to get treats at midnight, so she's probably going to start getting fairly vocal. It's only a few more minutes to go. Give me a moment. Yep, there. You can probably hear her. It's Wednesday. Boom. Got some big explosions. Because, I mean, we haven't really had any since the whole chase to the border thing, so we were due for some big explosions. All sorts of havoc. But Necro, of course, is going to get himself onto the plane, because he and Bond have to have their showdown. She get onto the plane, too? Yeah, she does. So she's on horseback. He's trying to get... Oh, she fell off. She's not on horseback anymore. Cat, come on, just give me a few more minutes. Yes, I know what time it is. Yeah, so now she gets herself a Jeep. Because he's finally taxiing out to the main runway, because a big, huge cargo plane like that needs a lot of runway to take off. So they do have a lot of time here. Oh, Georgie recognizes her. I don't even know what he thinks at this time. Okay, please be careful there. I think she turns on the windshield wipers at one point, which is a bit you see in a lot of movies. Like where, you know, somebody's driving a car and somebody lands on their windshield, like trying to get them, and they turn on the windshield wipers. Maybe that didn't happen. Maybe I imagined it. It's just happened so many years. Yeah, so now she's trying to catch up. So I guess he can't just jump off the plane and blow it up, because if he jumps off the plane, he has half the goddamn Soviet army coming after him. So he really does have the only option is to take off. Of course, here is the problem: the bomb ticking down. Okay, so he opens up the back so she can drive the Jeep onto it. I like how she doesn't understand at first. And he's just like shakes it. She's like, "Oh, I get it. Drive the Jeep into the plane. Cool." And Necro's mad because he's not allowed to shoot at the plane. So he's just going to try to catch up too. This happens a lot in movies where, like, it even happens like in the movie like Aliens, where it seems like there's no possible way they could have gotten on, and then they just do anyway. They just leave us enough doubt there. She leaves, he's catching up, or, oh, no, maybe they actually show him jump on. Maybe they show it. Because sometimes in movies they don't show the bad guy get on, and they're kind of sneaky about, oh, here's some added tension, here's another plane coming into land. Okay, he jumps. Okay, so they do show it. Because so Necros, or whatever his name, does jump on. We don't necessarily see him land, but we see that he jumped. And of course, oh, there goes Koskov. Bye-bye. He's one of the sadder villains. I mean, he's a villain in that, he orchestrated things, but, he wasn't any sort of threat or anything to anybody. But anyway, boom, he's gone. Oh, he's not. He jumped clear. Yeah, he just gets arrested by Pushkin. I remember now. Yeah, he doesn't die. Which is just as well. It's a better fate for him to have Pushkin catch up to him. So he jumped clear. So they weren't too sneaky. They did show that Necro jumped. They just didn't show that he got on. Because sometimes in movies like this, they're kind of a bit sneaky. It's like the way the camera moves and stuff. It's like, there's no way the bad guy got on before, and then it's like, no, he's here. And that's what, So Bond goes to close the door, and of course he's going to get ambushed here by Necron, whatever. Because they've got to have it out. So, okay, fight here. I mean, it's really hard to live up to the original one that happens on the train car in From Russia with Love. That's a really good scene. And I feel like it kind of set the bar because there's a lot of movies that have like fight scenes where the whole point is it's a small enclosed area, so there's not much room for, them to move around in as they fight. You see that done in a lot of movies. I feel like the first really famous example of that was the train car fight in From Russia with Love, which is done really well. And I mean, that's 1963, and that's some very good fight choreography. And it's not too bad here. It's the usual thing, big, strong, blonde guy knocking Bond around. Bond's not small, but... And now they're both hanging out of the back of the plane. While the cellist is flying, and she's really bad at it. I mean, if I suddenly had to fly a cargo plane, I'm not saying I'd be good either, but she can't keep it level or anything. And of course, the bomb is ticking down the whole time. Stakes are very high, as is appropriate for a Bond movie. Yeah, I know. She's resolved herself to wait, so now she's just going to stare at me until it's time. I can't believe I got through this on only one little can. I'm still so thirsty. It's not 2 hours. I drink so much in that time. I don't eat much, but I'm always drinking. Just as well, though. I wouldn't want to get up and go to the bathroom. You know, when I was at the theater last week and I saw Black Widow, this hasn't happened to me in a long time. And of course, it makes sense because I've only been to the theater 4 times in the last 2 years because of what's happened. But you know, this did used to happen to me is that I would have like a pop. Well, I don't drink pop anymore, but you know, I had a Fruitopia or something and I was drinking it. So about halfway through the movie, I had to get up and go to the bathroom, which was annoying because, you know, you're missing stuff. Run back. And within about not even 15 minutes of being back in my chair, I had to go again. But I managed to sit not just through the whole rest of the movie, but even the entire credit sequence, just so I could see the stupid after credit scene, which at least was worth it because it was probably the end credit moment at the end of Black Widow, like suggests something a lot cooler than the movie that you just watched. I didn't think it was a bad movie, but it was a bit of a letdown. But I'm glad I got to see that end credit scene. But anyway, by that time, like I thought my bladder was going to explode. So it's just as well I didn't drink a lot through this. I mean, this is a live commentary. I can't be running off to the bathroom. And there he goes. The boot did it. Get off my plane, says Harrison Ford. Camera follows him down for quite a bit. Still pretty hard. That would be really hard, though, climbing up. And I mean, he gets... they kind of cheats. Like, the wind just sort of throws him in, which is good, because that would be very difficult physically to do. Climbing up in all that wind. Of course, there is still the matter of the bomb. No problem. It's just in one of those millions of bundles that look exactly the same. Bomb, James. There's a bomb. Okay, he can hear it beeping. At least that gives a bit of a clue. I think he finds it with 2 seconds. 4, 3, 2. There. Stopped it. Might want to do something. Yeah, go up front and check on the cellist that can't fly a plane. He got the boot. He can't even finish his cool witticism because she's about to fly them into the side of a goddamn mountain. Come on, Kara. Come on. Yeah, I kind of interrupted myself ages ago and I was talking about the different levels of Bond girls. Because, you know, some of them are kind of like Kara in that they're just sort of ordinary people that get caught up in crazy events. Some of them are a little less ordinary, although it's not like they have training or anything, because sometimes they're like the girlfriend of a bad guy. Actually, that's what she was, right? She was a girlfriend of a bad guy. That's how she gets pulled into it. She's a cellist, but she's, yeah, so, but sometimes they're like some sort of maybe, of course, there are bad Bond girls too, and they're usually like enemy agents and stuff. And then there's even agents on his side that are helping him. One of my other, it's funny, when we did get Carter, although she's barely in the movie, Swedish actress Britt Ekland is in it. And Britt Ekland is actually a Bond girl in the Roger Moore movie, The Man with the Golden Gun. And unlike a lot of Bond girls, she's actually an MI6 agent too. She's not a 00, but she is a field agent. And yet she's completely frigging useless in that movie. It's like she doesn't do anything useful, and she gets like captured at least once, maybe twice. So she's a damsel in distress, even though she's not supposed to be one. So a pretty creative use of the bomb here. Resets it, drops it on the bridge so that the pursuing Russian forces can't catch up to the fleeing Mujahideen. So well done. One last little victory for them. But anyway, so yeah, you get different levels of their competency. And it's just kind of sad that her name is Goodnight by that. I guess that's like her code name. The Goodnight is just like useless. I mean, she's gorgeous. Britt Eklund with those big eyes, just definitely one of the prettiest Bond girls, one of my favorites. Another part of my like weakness for blondes, I suppose. But yeah, but Goodnight is not at all useful. Hell, even at the end when they get attacked by the little guy from Fantasy Island, she's useless. Like, he's like 3'6". I thought you were a trained agent, but yeah. Anyway, so Kara acquits herself pretty well for somebody who's like not an agent. That whole thing at the beginning with her like having the sniper rifle, that was all a put on, right? Like she's not a KGB assassin. That's the great thing about Bond. One problem to the next. First he has to kill Necro. Then he has to get rid of the bomb. Then he has to keep them from flying into a mountain. And now they find out that they're losing fuel, so they have to make a landing. But they do it. So they're going to try to get over to the Pakistan border. And I don't even think they show what happened. They do it. There go the propellers. Oh, yeah. No, they jump. They jump with the Jeep. You think I remember. I've seen this movie a lot of time. I forgot. And why am I telling you you're watching it? That's the point of this live commentary. If you're watching if you're just listening to me blab about the movie and not watching it, I feel like, I don't know, you should be watching it. Whether this is live or you're watching this at a later date. We are at just before the 2-hour mark. We are at 1:59:41. So yeah, I don't know how realistic this is, but there's no parachutes or anything. So we're just going to open the back and drive our Jeep out of the plane. Fasten your seatbelt. That'll help you on a 10,000-foot drop. But yeah, that's the thing. Like the plane, yeah. So I mean, it makes sense. They're fairly close to the ground. It's not like they're dropping from thousands and thousands of feet up. It seems like that could work. I mean, that wasn't computer effects, so they must have done something like that. Yeah, there goes the plane. So there goes the opium shipment, in case people forgot what the hell was at stake and what's going on here. Karachi's. He knows a great restaurant in Karachi, which is a good little thing, because that's another thing that you need to establish about Bond in any movie, is that he's been around. You know, he's experienced. He's been in lots of places. He's done lots of things. His movies should be full of like callbacks to stuff that we've never seen. Like, oh, remember that time in Siberia, stuff like that. He should like meet people that have met him before. People should have like heard of, and that's why you have to have him as an older guy. Like he's not in his 20s or something. He's somebody who's been doing this a long time. And he's got a bit of a reputation, which is always the funniest part about him being a spy, right? It's like he's a spy, but he always uses his real name. And like he's well known in the intelligence community. Like the whole plot of the Man with the Golden Gun is like, this is a guy that is a leading assassin that, kills people for like $5 million a hit or something like that. But nobody hires him to kill Bond. It's just his own idea because he's heard of Bond. He's like, oh, everybody says Bond's the best, but I'm going to prove I'm the best by killing him. So here's Whitaker in his own back at his hideout, having fun, reenacting battle with his dumb toy soldiers. Bond's got the drop on him, it looks like. But not. Tell us some more about your stupid military ridge. So you're saying I'm replaying it, yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's talking about a battle in the American Civil War. Talking about Gettysburg. You're not getting opium. It blew it up. Up in smoke? Yep, up in smoke. But remember, you can never come at a crazy arms dealer and think you've got the upper hand. Because we've already seen his like special table here is full of guns. Instead of a poor dead one. I mean, some good versatility here because he's a decent enough villain. Like he's not particularly sinister, but I mean he's kind of a more realistic villain. Like he's just some asshole arms dealer who's obsessed with war. He loves his toys and his guns. And that's all he really cares about. But I mean, he's kind of some nice comedic relief as the CIA liaison, Jack, whatever his name is, that he meets in Goldeneye. I mean, it helps that Bond is also, maybe it would be a little weird if Dalton was still Bond in Goldeneye, but it's Pierce by then. So now he's got a gun with some nice with a cool shield up over it. Should have aimed lower, James. Now you're out of bullets. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. That is kind of cool that he has like an actual functioning little cannon there. I'll give him credit. Most of his toys I think are stupid, but that's kind of cool. He's willing to blast the place apart, though. I mean, I guess he has to. He has to kill Bond. Bond's unarmed, but he still has his little mini explosive. You'd hide behind that British vulture Wellington. So, of course, he has this. He had to buy German mercenaries to just defeat. Aha! Wellington got the drop on you. And that's cool, too. That's one of the things about Bond, is sometimes he can be lucky. Because even though he just killed the main bad guy, one of the henchmen was just about to kill him. But at that exact moment, Pushkin and his men come in and save him. Because I owed you that one, Bond. Don't you have a clever line for him? Yes, he met his Waterloo. Nice. Oh, and look, Koskov. And he's, of course, going to pretend that, I've been on your side all along, Pushkin. I love you. I was Whitaker's prisoner. Ah, fuck you. But Pushkin knows. He plays along for a little bit, pinches his cheeks, smiles at him. In a diplomatic bag. I mean, I think that means he really is going to die. Isn't that what it means? If he says in a bag? I mean, is that a joke? I think he really is going to have him killed. I don't know. But, Kara technically is a defector too, so he'll save her. So there she is performing with an orchestra. And she's got the bullet hole in. And yeah, that would ruin the cello sound. But, she gets a little solo here, which I don't know if the actress learned cello or not, but I must say I do find it very appealing seeing an attractive woman play cello. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, she's the star. Like, she's got the solo part, and the whole orchestra's behind her. And of course, she's nowhere to be seen in any movies after this, because that's the way it goes. But it almost seems like they might have a real relationship. I mean, yes, at first he was like lying to her and all this stuff, but he cared about her. He saved her life, and she found out the truth. And yeah, it ends like they're gonna have a relationship, which of course never happens in a Bond movie. And of course they make a point of that, right? When they do the reboot with Casino Royale. The whole point is, it's his first mission as a 00. By the time it's over, he's fallen in love and says, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to have a life with the woman I love. She gets killed, and M very coldly says to him, I hope you've learned your lesson. And we know he does. And the idea is, no more falling in love, and the only life I have is this job. So I'm going to live on the edge and have sex when I can. And, it all makes sense. So they really try to contextualize it for us, which makes sense. But as far as the ending of this movie goes, it almost seems like, hey, she's going to be his girlfriend and stuff. But, it's a one-off. We'll never see her again. I like how the Mujahideen here come in their full battle gear with, like, what are the words for those, things? When they've got ammo strapped across them. I don't know. Anyway, they come in. He says, we have a little trouble at the airport. That's funny. No, I will not make some sort of 9/11 joke. Joking about Afghanis at the airport. Anyway, she didn't see Bond. She's disappointed. He didn't seem to come to her big show, but there she is in her dressing room. World tour of Kira Milovi. So yeah, she's become quite famous, I guess. Was she always going to be? I don't know. But I guess they're just trying to point out things have worked out really well. Not only did they save the day and get rid of the arms dealer and possibly avert World War III, but her career is doing great. So this one doesn't have one of the classic Bond endings, which is usually he ends up on a boat with the girl. That's in a lot of the movies, including the first one, Dr. No. It ends with them like out to sea somewhere, including GoldenEye, Man with the Golden Gun, which I just mentioned. It ends with them. So there you go. The Living Daylights. that is my favorite Bond. And yeah, I'm well aware of the others. I've seen them all. I like them. I can't make any argument that it's the best, but it's just the one I like best. But I can make an argument it's one of the best, I feel. Yeah, so 004 and 002 were in the movie, and they were both killed. So how many 00s are left? I don't know. But yeah, I do think it is one of the best, and I think it's so overlooked. I don't really know why. I mean, Dalton's tenure, I mean, both his movies are overlooked. He's an overlooked Bond. I mean, maybe because he only made two. I guess the timing, I feel, for the millionth time, I'll say, I think it's really unfortunate he didn't get to make the third one. Maybe that would have helped cement his status. I don't know. But I think he's a really solid Bond. And unlike the others, since he only did two, he never had to make a bad one. Whereas Moore definitely made some bad ones. I think Connery, maybe his only bad one is the last one he came back for, Rhymes or the Other. But he also made, Thunderball, which I think is mediocre. And here's my, if there's not a more controversial statement that I think that for me, he's my least favorite Bond. The other controversial statement I'll give is I think that Goldfinger is the most overrated Bond by far. Because for whatever reason, if it's not often said to be the best, and it is often said to be the best, usually they say it's like the most iconic, like it's the one you think of, it's the one you reference. And I think it's kind of a dull movie, and I don't get why Goldfinger himself is such a great bad guy. He's just a guy that talks in a room. He doesn't do much. I also like how Bond doesn't really use any actual skills in that movie for the most part. Think about this. Remember the famous iconic part, do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Remember, Bond is strapped to like a weird table and they have a laser coming at him, right? Obviously, he gets out of it. But how does he get out of it? Does he get out of it like, by using some gadget, or he dislocates his shoulder? He doesn't do any of that. He bluffs his way into getting them to like not kill him. He says all this stuff that he knows about, like this thing they're going to do when he's only heard the name of it. It's what is it? Operation Grand Slam, or whatever, right? Like he heard that name, but he actually, at this point in the movie, James Bond will return, it says, but it doesn't actually give the title. Sometimes they know the title. This one, it just says James Bond will return. Living Daylights. But there, boom, there you go. But I'll just finish my thought, and then we can wrap up and leave. And I'll say, but no, he gets off that table by bluffing. And so they're like, maybe we shouldn't kill him yet. So they let him go. And then the whole other thing is, of course, his big plan is to, drop this gas on Fort Knox and, kill everybody with it so he can go in and easily his forces can steal it. How does Bond stop that? Well, not by doing anything that great. When he's on the plane with Pussy Galore, and Pussy Galore is going to, kill him, he basically talks her out of it and seduces her, and so she switches sides. So then she helps organize this big, huge fake out. Whereas, what's his name? Where Goldfinger thinks his plan is working, but she's arranged the fake out. They've called Fort Knox and warned them. So the whole thing is when they drop the stuff, it's not real. So all the soldiers that drop pretend to be gassed and dead, but they're not. They're not hurt at all. It's harmless. So anyway, when they get up and start firing. So yeah, again, he foils the bad guy's plan just by seducing his henchwoman and getting her to turn sides. And he gets out of the big trap by just lying his ass off. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, that's part of being Bond, is that he's good at seducing women, and he's also good at, being clever in that way. I'm just saying that's the greatest Bond movie. Him doing that, I don't know. To me, it's a bit of a letdown. It's kind of not memorable or cool, but I don't know. For whatever reason, Goldfinger is considered when the Bond series reach perfection, which I don't agree with. So that's my other sort of hot take, unpopular opinion on Bond. But anyway, finish up. Living Daylights, 1987, first film by Timothy Dalton. Last film to use sort of the Cold War backdrop as a plot point. They got the most they could out of it. Unfortunately, Dalton only got to do one other movie, but I think that License to Kill is very solid. I like it a lot. Hey, maybe I'll do it on the channel. I don't know. But I definitely wanted to do this. So yeah, these solo, or at least they're starting out so. I've invited people to come on these, but I guess my timing hasn't been great because I've been doing these a little bit earlier, and there's a time difference. It's later here for me than it is for most of the people that I know. It's a few hours earlier for them. So I wouldn't mind having some company. My cat's running around like a lunatic for some reason. Here she goes. What are you doing? I have no idea what she's doing. I'll give her treats in a moment. She's 16 years old, and she still does shit like that. It's incredible. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, in the future, maybe I can get somebody else on here, but I guess lately the timing hasn't worked. But yeah. So I've just tried to focus on movies that I know really well and like. I mean, when I'm doing them, with other people, sometimes we're here's a fun movie to do, and we bullshit and stuff. But I mean, if I think that there's a chance I'm gonna have to do this solo and not have anybody to play off of, it has to be a movie that I know really well, so I can talk the whole time. And I know anybody watching is thinking, you talk too much. Oh, well, that's my style. You don't have to watch my live commentaries if you don't want to. But I don't know. I hope that maybe I could enhance somebody's viewing of The Living Daylights, or even encourage them to watch it if they don't know it, because a lot of people don't know it. It's, you tell people to name a James Bond movie, they're not going to name that. You tell somebody who knows every movie in the series to name it, they'll probably name like 15 or 16 of them before they get to it, I think. Not me, but I think that's how it is for most people. So it feels good to do that. But so yeah, so these movies that I'm doing on my own channel, if I'm soloing them, they're going to be movies like this, like personal favorites, so that they're movies that I know forwards and backwards, that I know a lot about, that I can talk a lot about, because I might be on my own. I mean, I hope to do some live commentaries like I've done in the past, where we just screw around and talk. And I hope that Jay and I, of course, can do some martial arts movies. We often do those on his channel too, because we can just get more traffic on his channel. I mean, a lot of the times when I'm streaming, I think a lot of people aren't even aware of it. But so I'm really grateful anybody that came along. Thanks a lot, CinemaFan97. It was good having you to talk to and bounce off of. I really appreciate that. Anyway, so that'll do. Thanks so much for watching. Whether you watch live or you're watching this at a later date, it means a lot to me. And yeah, hopefully in the near future, I can do some more of these. And if they're solo ones, yeah. There is a poll on my Twitter channel. I named 4 movies that I'll do all of them eventually, but maybe what one to do next. So if you want to check that poll and see what the 4 movies are, I'll even maybe retweet it or something so you can vote. Right now, I think there's 4 votes in all 4 different. Each movie has a vote, so it's deadlocked right now. But that's going for another couple days, so we'll see what we can do. So that should be my next commentary. Should be one of those 4. So anyway, stay tuned for that. Thanks a lot, guys. Peace out, and I'll see you next time. Same bad time.